tomorrow, apparently, we're adopting, not adopting, we're buying this.
Sweet lady, the bag comes with it. That's what I said, the bag.
Are there tenants
Okay.
upstairs?
Actually, they're good.
Yeah.
So far,
Yeah, I hope so.
they're fire.
The whole thing is,
Can you what? Oh, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it.
Used to be a lot of fire calls. They were throwing food all the time.
1 floor or 2
I
floor?
think it's 3. If we could get the back fixed, that's what I'm hoping is holding the back. It's terrible.
I just muted the alarm.
That's what I was waiting to start. Good evening. Today is Monday, October 7th, 2024. It's 7 p.m. I'd like to call the regularly scheduled Board of Selectmen meeting to order.
Linda Grappo.
Troy Lemire?
Paul Marino.
Paul Harrington. Todd Archelashi.
Len Albanesius.
William Hester.
Candy Perez.
William Pozo.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance Agenda review. Does anyone have anything? Moving on to item number 4, approval of minutes of a regular meeting from September 16th.
So moved.
Thank you, Troy.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Unanimous? Moving on to item number 5, citizens' comments. The Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. Does anyone wish to speak? Seeing none, moving on to item number 6, town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I get into details of the town manager report, 2 quick items. Typically, you all have seen me in town hall wear pink. This month's pink's a little bit different. It is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So wearing in pink, especially in honor of my mom and all the other women that have gone through breast cancer. But as a human being, I would remind all women, if they can, schedule your mammograms. My mom's was caught early on, and she's here today with me, and I don't know what I would do without her. So pink this month isn't just because I like wearing it. It's for breast cancer awareness. And secondly, the pumpkins that are in front of each of you were donated from a lovely resident who happens to be married to Mr. Pozo. Dee Pozo actually made each one of us a pumpkin. Those are for you to take home tonight and use as you wish. So I'm sure the rest of the board also says thank you to Dee Pozo for providing a little Halloween cheer around here this evening.
Pass it along.
Thank you. Moving on, the last 3 weeks have been quite eventful. I'll start off in no particular order. I did condense the report a little bit tonight, just so we could get through the rest of the agenda that has a lot of items. First item up is, as you know, Alexa Hilton did leave her communications director. We did go out for a search. We did bring in some candidates. We were going to second interviews. After further review of looking at the communications director's job description and ultimately which direction we want to move in, felt that the candidates that we brought in weren't as IT heavy as we would like them to be. I think you'll note that we've done a pretty good job in communicating with our residents, either on Facebook or on social media channels, I should say, and also on our website. So we're going to go back out and address the communications director's position. So that is still a vacant position. Moving on to Walland Hills. I alluded to that at our last meeting that we sat down with. We had multiple developers come in, showed strong interest in the properties. I've engaged Jim Rollins to do an assessment of the existing infrastructure that's underneath that road. I think that's very important to know what condition that infrastructure, I mean water and sewer, as that is a tremendous sell to potential developers in that they don't need to go in and spend millions of dollars. They can use the existing infrastructure that's down there. I also have gone to our town planner to create a one-sheet sell sheet showcasing the property's benefits. We've talked roughly, it's 118 acres still to this day. I don't know exactly how many acres are buildable. I know there's been a few numbers that have been thrown around. Is it 54? Is it 62? Well, you know what? Our last greatest piece of developable land that doesn't have anything on it. There's many other pieces. We need to know these things, so I've tasked both Jim and Lance with getting those facts, so we can then, you know, when we sit down with developers, can present a pretty good case on why they want to develop here. Further on that, I've talked to these developers. I think if they show interest, that they should write up a simple proposal that I could present to, you know, everybody here. We want to be careful in exactly when we unlock that property, in that we want to have control of it. So we know what's going to happen in there, and get the best benefit for the town. So more on that as that develops, but it was great meetings a few weeks ago with a lot of potential developers that were pretty excited about it. You know, we've had our fair share of crises over the last few weeks here in Winston. I brought in our emergency management director, and we talked about Crisis Track. We do have that software, and we are going to now be using Crisis Track in that it literally lists all things that we should be doing. I've tasked the EMD director to load in all of the important items to make sure when an issue does occur in town, that each agency within the town is checking each one of those boxes. So we're in the process of making sure that our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed. One of them obviously being communicating with the Board of Selectmen. I own that pretty much at the last meeting when I didn't even email you guys that we lost water. I think the week later, I think we had 2 crises. We had a tree fall over at Highland Lake, and then we had a structure fire, one on Saturday and one on Sunday, and immediately jumped on, and it makes it easier. I now have an email group that has the Board of Selectmen, so I just have to type in one email address and it goes off to you. I did have a great tour of Torrington. Took a ride around Torrington, looked at all of their redevelopment, talked about their strategies, talked about their successes, looking to bring some of those ideas into town. If you haven't been to Torrington, obviously, in a while, you'll see that that town is heavily being developed right now, and they're doing a great job with it. So I appreciate taking the tour of Torrington and seeing the strategies and successes that they have. An important matter that continues to go up every single year in our budget is our health insurance line. I brought the brokers in from Brown & Brown, learned a little bit about the consortium that we are in with our insurance deals, understanding that we are getting a better cost being involved with all of these particular agencies and towns and groups. So I posed to the insurance brokers, when was the last time we did an audit? And they looked at me and they said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, do an audit, similar to the city of Hartford, similar to the town I used to work in, to making sure that the people that we are insuring and paying for are legitimate people that we should be paying for and insuring. If you go back and you Google it, you'll see the city of Hartford saved, I think, a few $100,000 a year. They love the idea. They're going to bring it up in their fall meeting, which should be happening, I think, in November, of doing a health insurance review audit to ensure that, you know, what each town is paying for those particular members, that they're doing it. Why it's never been done before, I'm sure. I know we engaged it as soon as I heard the city of Hartford ended up saving a lot of money. And I'll tell you, even in the small town I came from, we found savings as well. We found things that were not right, I guess I'll say, and we found things that shouldn't be insured, and we immediately moved it from our policy and took those savings. Talked about the website. I did receive a quote today from a website provider. I almost fell off my chair. I need more time in researching some website. It was up there. That will not be before you tonight to talk about, because I already know the answer without even asking. It was up there. But working on website, OpenGov transparency software. It was something that Jeff Green really wanted. Talked with several communities from around the state. We did end up signing a contract with OpenGov. We did bring down the price a little bit from the original quote that we got. After speaking with these towns, finding out how much these towns are actually getting from, you know, the land use side of things, decided that this was the right move, and I think most of you or all of you would agree that Jeff is doing a wonderful job, and giving him this tool will only make him even do better at his job. I'll also note that a few things are going on in the blight department. Since coming on, we've collected well over $60,000 in blight fines. We're really reaching out to those people that, you know, have the higher blight fines on their property, trying to get that remediated as quick as possible, getting that money in. But the also other item is we are meeting with homeowners in that's the last approach we want to take, is using the stick and having them pay money. We're working with them in cleaning up their properties, and right now it's working very well for the town. So in the future, depending on how well we're doing in blight and this particular software, we may be looking to inject some of the blight money to offset the cost of this software in future budgets, but more on that as we get into the budget process. Police department update, as all of you, I believe, were here when we promoted 2 of our sergeants. Congratulations to them again. Which now leaves us 2 officers' positions to be filled. We have 3 in the academy, with the officer that was just hired during the promotion ceremony. We have 1 still as a field training officer that should be out of that program within the next 30 days, I believe. So we're getting there. I meet with the police union on a bi-weekly basis. I'm happy to report that right now there are no outstanding issues. There are no grievances, there's no MPPs, there is nothing. So things are slowly improving down there, and my eyes are obviously constantly on there to make sure that our police department's moving in the right direction. And all the men and women down there are doing an absolute great job, and you know, pushing the limits of what they can do, because obviously we're short-staffed down there, but it's working good right now. Moving on, EDC held the job fair over at the AMP. Wow, simply blown away. Their attendance was larger than it was last year, and the feedback we got from the attendees and from the businesses was overwhelmingly positive. ASO contract, we finalized with Gilbert late last week. We'll talk about more of that later on the agenda. I did have a chance to meet with Miss Luby, our new school superintendent of Pearson and Hillsdale. We're already starting working collaboratively on initiatives that benefit both the towns and the schools. You can already tell the relationship that we have. Selectman Poza was requesting the boiler updates. One quick conversation with our new superintendent, and I think within 2-3 days, you had that update.
I got a response from her immediately.
Okay, yeah, so things are moving in the right direction, and looking forward to the relationship continuing to grow. Attended my first Fall Foliage Festival. Simply blown away by not only the residents, but the businesses, the overall response that Fall Foliage Fest had. The weather was absolutely beautiful. I did almost lose a thumb that day, but it's recovering, just helping set up a tent, but it'll heal. Continue to go out to different local businesses, receiving warm and welcoming open arms approaches from these business owners. And we'll continue to go out to the different businesses as my schedule allows it. 2 more items, ARPA funding update. As I've stated to this board, we have, as a town, to put a PO in the system and report to the federal government on or before December 31st of this year, 2024. Any money that does not have a PO does need to get turned back in. I've gone to all of our department heads that our deadline with all of these department heads that have money is October 31st of 2024. If they're not going to be able to get a contract or a PO in the system, that only gives us 2 more months to reappropriate that money. So far, everyone's been taking that very seriously. I'm seeing POs hit the system, and I don't believe any money will have to go back to the federal government, because I'll be in front of all of you asking to reallocate it if there was, even if we had to call a special meeting. And last but not least, because Torrington got a little bit of my eyes, I finally got to take a tour of Highland Lake from the inside, and was absolutely blown away by the beauty and the asset that it is to this community. But it was a great tour of Highland Lake. I won't mention names, but found out we have some pretty famous people that live on that lake as well. So I was very happy to take that tour as well. So if any of you other selectmen want to take me on tour, please. I enjoy it. One of the things that I need to do a better job is to get as much of stuff that you have in your brains into mine. So if you have some time and you want to show me something that is unique, that you have a passion about, call me. Let's go for a little road tour, boat tour, whichever you want to do. But the two tours that I mentioned were done by two of our selectmen on this board, and I want to thank both of those selectmen for taking time out of their busy schedules to show me different things around this area and giving me knowledge. With that, Mr. Mayor, I'll open it up to potential questions.
Questions from the board?
I just got one on the police department. How many active members do we have as patrol officers now and sergeants?
Okay. So we have 21 is the number. So I gotta.
I mean, how many are actually working?
Yeah, I gotta
right
back
now?
out of that number right now because I don't want to misquote. So 21, you have 2 there, which brings it down to 19. You got to take 3 away from that. So you have 16 officers that are on the job, I believe, right now, that can hit the road and all of that. And then I believe you have 5 sergeants.
Should be 6, I think.
6 sergeants. My apologies, you're right.
What I thought.
6 sergeants. Yep.
So 21 is your total patrol when it's filled?
Correct.
When we hire the
But as
two?
of right now, as for actual people that
People
are
that actually can have arresting powers, there's 16, if my
there's
math is
16
correct. Yes.
Plus 6 sergeants?
Yes.
Yeah, it's 22.
That's
Right.
22. Wait a minute.
So maybe 15 and 6.
15 and
But we can't have, there's not
No.
15 people, because 5 of them are in school.
No,
That's
you-
the number I was looking for.
No, you said
What I
16.
understand, there's like 7 or 8 people that are working, and then 6 sergeants.
Troy, let me do this. I have a sheet up in my office that has the whole, can I email you? And I can email the entire board, the answer to that. I don't want to misquote anymore. Let me get that.
So we're like, almost like, we got as many sergeants as we have patrol officers right now.
I don't know if it's that, but keeping in mind one thing, that we did go into an MOA with the police department, that we can order in sergeants for patrol shifts.
Well, I don't think
So-
we have a choice on that.
Well, we don't when your staffing isn't at the full complement, but, so we do have sergeants that can be ordered in for patrol shifts. Police.
Anything else, Troy?
Nope, I'm good.
Other questions?
Yeah, you had an RFQ out for blight remediation services.
Yes.
The closing date, did you have anyone?
We didn't actually.
did not?
We did not have anybody come in for the remediation company. So, just to bring the entire board up to speed on blight remediation, one of the items that we were looking at doing is potentially cleaning and leaning, meaning property becomes blighted. We can continue the clock and, end up getting $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in potential fines. Or we can go in after a certain period of time and clean the property and then lean the property, so it provides the residents immediate relief when they don't want to look at the blight anymore. Some of these blighted properties, as you're probably all aware, sit there for months and years and they continue to look blighted, where a clean and lean philosophy will rectify the situation immediately, and then the town has the ability to recoup the money to clean it up, because we can lean the property to clean it. So, but no companies put it in, which is,
Okay.
yeah.
Anything else? Moving on to item number 7, correspondence. Does anyone on the board have anything? Moving on, number 8, boards and commissions. Troy?
Okay, so we have one new resident that put in for the Recreation Board to be under consideration, Joy Hubbard. As everybody knows, she was just elected a sergeant in our police department. She's very active in the town, so I believe she's already vetted, I would think, but that's up to the rest of you. And then we have a nomination for tonight, Jill Zitney, who comes to a lot of these meetings. I don't see her here tonight. She would like to be on the Laurel City Commission. And her term would end 9/20/29.
I think she also wants to be in the architectural review as well, Troy.
It doesn't say that, does it?
Yeah, architectural review /
Yeah,
Laurel
but-
City Commission.
This board doesn't appoint.
The Planning and Zoning Commission appoints that.
That's why I took it off.
Yeah, I don't have that on mine. So I'd like to make a nomination for, or a motion for, to appoint Jill Zitney, to the Laurel City Commission, term to end 9/20/29.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Paul. Discussion? All in favor? Unanimous?
Would the board consider, putting Joy in as a nomination tonight? Seeing how that she is well-known and vetted as a police officer for the Recreation Board?
I have a question about process. We set up a whole new process for this, right? And there were 3 of us that were supposed to be on a committee,
Right.
right? So, and then we were supposed to get the names ahead of time
I didn't get it either,
to vet, right?
right?
I mean, unless I'm mistaken on what the process was supposed to be.
What name?
Whoever's.
Joy's name.
Yeah,
We've been given, well, we had Jill's before, but there's this committee, right? The committee's not only supposed to just look at the name and vet, because we know her, but we're supposed to look at the balance of the board for, you know, DRs used, not exceeding 60% of any one party, make sure the expiration dates are correct. So,
I didn't get anything before.
But it's not the consideration step, is that, right?
well, there's a consideration step, but if we go to a point, then we've missed the whole process.
Right, so.
I just asked.
I
I
think
didn't
the
mean
question
to
is, we
do
can't
that.
really skip ahead tonight, is what you're saying. We need to
Well,
follow
I'm
the
just saying
procedure.
there's a process that,
Right here.
huh?
Is it in the packet or no?
Yeah, but I thought that,
We were supposed to get it before, I thought you were supposed to let us know personally as a committee who was not just in our packet.
Yeah, I think what they're asking, Glenn, is like, going forward, before this even comes to the selectmen's meeting, we get an email, everybody on a committee, with an application, just so we have a chance to review it, look into it.
Okay.
Can you, I don't know, do we take 10 seconds and review the process? Because it seems to me that's what the consideration step is. Tonight, Joy's name is entered. The committee of 3 now does the vetting process, so they get to step 2, which is what we appoint at. Is that not the way the process works?
yeah, but I just remember when we were sitting here before when because there used to be 3 meetings by the time you got to somebody, so it was to cut down on the meetings, but the committee was supposed to, or the committee is supposed to double check all that stuff ahead of time before you appoint someone. So when Troy's asking, can we skip it? I mean, the person is fine, but the makeup and the dates, I haven't reviewed it as part of the committee, so.
Yeah, we shouldn't skip it. I mean, we should stay to the process, I think.
so-
So that's what the consideration is. Now it's under consideration. The board, you 3 will vet, check dates, all that good stuff, and then it comes to us at the next meeting, right?
Just so I'm perfectly clear, so I know before we send the packet out, the group of 3, do you want it before it hits the Board of Selectmen packet, or being in the Board of Selectmen
I
packet?
would think that would be better if, as soon as somebody applies for something, we know.
So what's the consideration step? I think
That's what that is.
The problem here is going
But
from
that,
the
what
3
if
to
we're all
2,
busy
we
and we
didn't
don't,
change
have
the
enough time in
procedure.
2 weeks to come up with the, you know what I'm saying? Not that this is gonna be a problem, but I'm just saying, you
We're
know.
gonna be good, I just want direction, that's,
Does anybody have this process? Has this process been committed to writing somewhere
Yeah,
where we
it was
have
when
it?
we got it that night. It was a document that was given to us.
Okay, so somewhere we have that.
And then we talked about the
procedure.
committee, yeah. I mean, I'm fine with introducing the person in consideration right now, and we said that we would skip that if there was a quorum issue. And there's not a quorum issue under this, right? So there's no, like, they need 3 people for a meeting, and, you know, we're short somebody, so can we move this person along? But there's been different things that have happened since we agreed to a new process, so I'd just like to know what the process is.
Yeah, I was confused on how it was working, that's.
So you're the chair of
So-
this little committee.
So, Glenn,
You can't be
Well,
confused, is
never
what
been.
that means.
No one's ever said anything to me other than getting a piece of paper, so, like I think Steve used to get, they used to tell Steve, and then he would do the vetting, even though I was on the committee, he did all the work, and
Yeah, there was some discussion on that though, so why don't we clarify what we said in that meeting? Make sure we had that document that's typed up, and then we'll clarify the steps from there. Personally, I would prefer to get the application like when you get them, and then if it gets added to the next, it gives us a week to go through it and whatnot, but I agree, let's find a policy, let's type
some
it,
of these
let's
people
spell
are
it out.
easy, some of them could be hard.
Well, are you getting them, Glenn, or is Terry getting them? You're getting them all now, or is
They
Terry getting some?
ultimately filter down to me, so
Right.
when I get them, the minute I get them, I'll send them off to you guys.
That's perfect.
Yeah, that'd be
And
good.
then we could get together on picking who's gonna do what, and
Because again, when there's two like this, it's not a problem. We know like last year, what did we have, like
a lot.
eight a week?
Right.
For a while, it was a little crazy.
So now the interesting question is, the meeting in 2 weeks, does Joy stay at the consideration process, or does she go to step 2? Considering that you just got the information tonight. Moving forward, I think we have a clear path, but I just want to know,
Well, I would say that right now, as long as we clear her before you send out the next packet, like all the U's and all the end dates and all that are balanced in the way they're supposed to be, and the committee should do its work in time for the next packet, which you would need to know by the Thursday before the meeting.
Yep.
And if there's no issues, then it goes. And if there is an issue, we would say, ruh-roh. You know?
I can look into that and verify that.
I think
and
we might
email
need
the
to
three of us.
change the titles and take out consideration and make that a nomination, and then an appointment would be the second meeting.
should you go introduction
consider-
/ nomination?
That's why I was, you know,
Consideration should probably be before
He will-
it gets to the board.
Okay. Maybe introduction.
Yeah.
/ nomination? did you
Yeah,
say?
just move that up.
Got it.
Anything else, Troy? All right. Moving on to item number 9, we have no unfinished business. Item 10, the Gilbert School Security Officer Memorandum of Agreement. Cassidy? And then just a reminder to speak into the microphone so YouTube can hear you.
Be loud. Good evening, thank you for having me. I have Deb Lewis, who's also the principal at Gilbert, with me tonight. And I have a letter from Mr. Shagru, who unfortunately could not be with us tonight. Dear members of the Board of Selectmen, I would like to begin by offering my sincere apologies for not being able to attend tonight's meeting in person, as I am recovering from surgery on October 2nd. However, I remain fully engaged in our school's initiatives, particularly regarding the proposed security measures. As you may recall, this topic of an ASO was initially discussed with this board at its December 18th, 2023 meeting, but was tabled until the hiring of a full-time town manager. Tonight, we once again revisit our proposal addressing a crucial component of our school's security framework, the need for an armed security officer, or ASO. Some constituents have expressed a preference for a school resource officer. While we acknowledge the potential benefit of an SRO, the current staffing situation at our police department makes this option unattainable at this time. Delaying action further only increases the risk to our students and staff. Security, including the ASO initiative, has been a topic of public discussion and has been on our board agenda for over 2 years. Our board meetings are public and we welcome input from the community. We have also held parent meetings to discuss this initiative and other key concerns. Furthermore, our dedication to our students' mental health needs was reinforced as an additional social worker was successfully hired through a grant, demonstrating our continued commitment to the mental well-being of our students. These initiatives underscore our dedication to providing a nurturing and supportive environment for our students. While these steps are significant in supporting our students, it's essential to remember that the safety and security of our school community remain a top priority. The allocation of resources to address mental health concerns does not diminish our commitment to physical security. Both aspects are interconnected, ensuring a holistic and safe learning environment for all. To this end, I again propose the addition of an armed security officer, ASO, to our security measures. It is important to note that the concept of an ASO is not new, and many schools and districts have already recognized its value in enhancing school security. In our very own region, schools such as Region School Districts 1, 6, 10, 15, 16, 20, and Watertown have successfully employed ASOs to handle their security needs. Additionally, numerous other towns throughout the state, including Berlin, Derby, Easton, Reading, and Monroe, have incorporated ASOs into their school security frameworks. While we remain open to revisiting the SRO option if the situation at the police department improves, the immediate safety of our school community requires us to proceed with an ASO initiative now. Thank you for your time and consideration. I respectfully ask that you vote favorably on this initiative and authorize our town manager, Mr. Paul Harrington, to sign the MOU before you this evening. Thank you, Greg Shagru, head of school.
So I'll add that the MOU has gone through a few revisions. I met with our chief of police. There was some language earlier about that we will, that we must. That's all been changed to say that we would coordinate if we can to get this ASO individual the training that they're required. I've also sent this to our town attorney, who gave it a review, had a few suggestions, and finally his last suggestion, as we were working through it, is an indemnification clause, which you'll see was added to number 11. After that was inserted, I did send it back to the town attorney, who feels that this agreement or MOU is okay to sign if the Board of Selectmen so vote it, and that it does protect the town if anything were to come up. I know in the packet that was sent out, you do have the MOU, and then also Terry did email you all the packet of the research that the Gilbert schools did in December of last year, stating the importance and why they feel that an ASO is needed. I'll also note, after speaking with the chair and also Mr. Shagru, that parents have heavily weighed in on the ASO with several meetings. And the overall, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the overall consensus with the parents was they would like it, and there wasn't much of a backlash of bringing in an ASO.
Yeah, we've not heard any negative to adding.
Anything from the board? Candy?
Yeah, I have some financial questions.
Sure.
So I'll start with number 11 in the MOU, the indemnification. So it says, you know, all claims, liabilities, or costs, including attorney's fees, raising out of connection with something that would happen with the ASO. Because some of the things that could happen with the ASO are, you know, obvious to most people that it could happen. So one, is there an insurance policy that backs up this indemnification for financial reasons?
I'm gonna turn over to you.
I am not aware of an insurance policy, but there are Gilbert employee. So I think Kevin requested this language, if I'm correct.
He did.
So I'm mostly talking about the financial thing. First of all, I'm okay with the ASO. I'll just say
Yeah.
that out loud, but I do want to talk about the financials, because I think it's important for the board to understand the financials again, because just like I talked about last week with some of the things that we had, or last time with some of the things that we had for finances going forward, this is another one of those things. There's going to be financial impact, and because I'm going to get to a couple things. So one, your insurance would cover if something happens with the ASO, your basic insurance. And then, let's say insurance didn't cover it. Does the trust pay it, or does the Gilbert
The
School
school
Court?
corp would, since they're a
Okay.
school corp employee.
So the school court is paid 95% by the town, right? So, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful or anything like that. But in this MOU that we're talking about, when Kevin talks about protecting the town, if it doesn't go through the trust, but it goes through the school corp, all funding from the school corp, almost all of it, comes from the town. So we will be, so while we are saying that they're going to be taking care of all the issues with this, if there's a financial issue that exceeds insurance coverage that they have, then we will be paying that. just before we sign this, we know that. And then also in here, there's also things about, the training and the stuff that the officer needs, for, like in number 3, Corps is fully responsible for labor and/or equipment costs. Is that in the current budget, or is just the price for the ASO salary in there?
I believe just the salary was, but we didn't hire one at the start of the school year.
So you have the.
So we have the money in the budget this year.
All right, because that will also, like, over on, where is it? It's about the training that the school corps is gonna pay our police department for any training and labor costs, but pretty much that is still, we're financially responsible for all that because the way the structure works.
That would all have to be budgeted.
Budgeted in our tuition, right?
Right, it's budgeted in the tuition, but right now, we here will be paying all the costs of this that exceed the amount of, for next year anyway, that will exceed the amount in here, that will go in, and it will have to be paid. So when they have an increase in their budget, it's going to have to be paid, because with anything, well, other things too, but with this as well. And so there's that financial aspect. And then my last thing to the board will be, we have another 50% of our students in Hinsdale and Pearson that are not covered by an ASO, an SRO, or any security at the schools. We also have another school called Explorations at School, that is a charter school that's not part of our town, but could also ask for services. And then Northwest Regional is in our town, but they service with their own person. But elementary schools, I would say that for the next budget meeting, I'm uncomfortable providing security and safety to one set of students and leaving the other set of students not having.
So I would just like to comment on that. When we initially started meeting, and Todd was involved, as well as a former police chief and former town manager, we included Mel, and Doug was the board chair at the time. We sat at the table for several discussions, and then it was chosen by the former superintendent not to include that in their budget, and they, believe they formed a committee. We've been talking about this since March of 2022, and they stopped their progression on it. So I agree, every school should have one, but we have kept a conscious effort, and we've tried addressing the mental health by having counselors and getting grants for counselors.
Yeah.
We got security grants to harden the actual building, so this is the one piece we feel we're missing.
Right,
But,
I'm not saying I'm not supporting it.
right, I'm just saying they were at the table with us and
Right,
chose.
but as this board, there's been other people that have talked about security and wanting to provide an SRO, not an ASO and stuff like that. So I'm talking about, and this isn't the first time I've said it, I've said this before, that for the elementary, pre-K 6, I've said this before, that I think all of them should have the protection, especially as it's being paid by the town. And so, within the next budget, I would expect to see that this would come. If we're gonna approve this, then we should protect, as much protection as there is.
We can't force an ASO on the Board of Ed. They have to come asking for it,
Correct.
though. I mean, that's the unique structure that we have here. And the fact that we have 2 boards of ed and, one has come to us now and wants to move forward on this. And I agree with you. We need to have it at all the schools, but they have to come,
Yeah, but the town.
we should budget for it.
But the Board of Ed is a town entity. So I
But it's-
don't believe they would need to have a memorandum of agreement with us. They would just need to come to us or get it in the budget and then do their own.
Correct, yeah, this gives us,
This document is different because they're a semi-private, private, whatever you want to call it,
Right.
entity. So that's why we would have to do this. But I'm saying for budgetary purposes, and just to be.
And I
on the
believe
record.
those discussions have started, because I attended the last committee meeting of the Board of Ed to share with them our timeline and the process we've gone through for this, so I think they are working on that.
I mean, it's part of the Board of Ed budget for next year. And we can assume it's gonna be there. They have to put it in and ask for it, but we should plan on budgeting for it for us, because you're absolutely right, Candy. They have to have it at all the schools. It can't just be the one school. And everybody knows I've been very vocal about having an SRO, and I was lucky enough to attend a meeting with Holly and Mr. Shagru, and we talked a lot about that. And I think the plan down the road is to potentially move that direction when we have the staffing to do it, because I think there's lots of benefits we all agree on there. But the immediate need to protect the kids is now, and, you know, we need to support this and put it in place. But absolutely, we should, in our budget thinking for next year, make sure we budget for the other two.
Bill?
Well, I think, if you look at the next Board of Education meeting, I think the request is, they're in discussions now. I see they're gonna be discussing at this next meeting, so that request is gonna be proposed and put together, come forward. As far as the plans you guys have, now you're gonna enter a contract with this individual?
Correct.
You'll enter a contract, so there's gonna be salary increases, all this for, again, as Candy put it, ultimately, we're paying for this. So we're budgeted this year, so you're planning on adding that to the budget on top of what you're gonna
It
be
would
asking for
continue
next
to
year.
be included in our budget, correct.
Troy?
So in here it says, the corp will be fully responsible for any labor or equipment costs incurred by the police department or town implementing this provision. The corp will also be responsible for purchasing firearms and ammunition for the use of the ASO, and will either purchase directly from or reimburse the police department. I don't believe that's even allowed. You have to have a permit you have to have a license to carry a gun. A corp cannot purchase a weapon and the ammunition, so that shouldn't be even in
This
here.
is
That
a
would be the
standard
person.
MOU that we got, I believe, from Newtown, or.
Not even legal.
And the town lawyer.
So, I think I can answer that. So, I think what it's stating, Troy, is that, yes, you are 100% correct. In order to buy ammunition or in order to buy a firearm, you do need to be licensed in the state of Connecticut. I think what this is stating is that the particular ASO will go and purchase it and then be reimbursed.
The corp is financially
The
responsible.
corp is financially responsible. Yes, I don't believe the corp can go out and purchase it.
But this is a fine thing, because the person that carries the weapon has to have the thing registered in their name, right? So, okay, he leaves, and you don't have nobody to take the spot.
No, Troy, that's not
Until you
correct.
hire somebody else. Where does that weapon go?
The weapons are not, your carry permit is not weapon-specific.
Correct.
The weapon can be owned by the corp. The police department supplies sidearms for the police department. They don't, but that's
Well, that's
not
the police
correct.
department.
You can, a license to carry can carry any weapon. There's no specific, the weapons are not registered to the person specifically. So they can carry, the town can own it, or the Board of Ed, or the corp can own it and supply it to the ASO.
I don't think you can do that, but maybe.
And this,
I know the
as they
police
pointed out,
department can, but-
this particular MOU was used in several other communities. And basically, the only change was adding the indemnification and a few other minor changes that our attorney wanted in there, so.
I think it's important to note, that did come up on the phone call with Mr. Shagru when, the town attorney was asking for certain things, and also our police chief was asking for certain things. It wasn't contentious at all, but Mr. Shagru said, why does it have to be different than any other town? I said, because we are different than any other town, in that the corp is a vendor of ours. So I thought the protection for the town was very important in that it is a unique situation. We are different than on the other towns. And Mr. Shagru agreed, and goes, that's a great answer, but I thought it's important the MOU is similar, but we do have some uniqueness to it, because we are a very unique town in the situation of having this quote-unquote vendor.
And I would think that the contract that you enter into with this ASO will speak to that in terms of we supply the items for your job, which in this case is a firearm and ammunition, and that would be turned into the corp and probably turned into our police department upon the resignation of that individual, and our police department can manage the ammunition and the firearm.
Well, actually, thinking about what Troy said. Troy is actually right. When you purchase a firearm, it does get linked to you.
Correct.
So I think you need in your contract that if they leave, they'll reimburse the corp for the purchase price
Well,
of
the corp
the
can,
firearm.
I think, so the police department buys them.
Yeah, but when you purchase a firearm, like
It's registered to the Winston Police Department.
that would have to be registered to you for the background check.
Yeah.
But, so, because it's a different, because they're different entities, I just want to follow down this line. They're different entities, so the police department is a municipality with state statutes, right? And state statutes cover the police department, the purchase of guns, ammunition, et cetera. Insurance covers all of that. This is now a school corporation registering a firearm and ammunition
Which,
that is not covered by state statute,
correct.
other than what you're supposed to have for permits and all that kind of stuff. So it may be a little bit, it may be,
Yeah, I suppose we need to find that, the people responsible for the contract need to find that part out.
right, because we're not, our municipality, like, I believe at Northwestern, they're connected as a constable to Barkhamsted, and I want to say maybe the gun comes from that. So with this is, who's the gun going to? But then again, it goes back to my initial question of financial responsibility should something go awry.
It's a firearm accidentally discharged in the school or something.
Yeah, so like number
Could
11,
happen.
the indemnification is a really important thing for the town in terms of understanding, you know, what's
Right.
covered and not covered, because of the financial pieces of it. Not that, this isn't a discussion about whether we want security or don't want security or anything like this. This is, for me, it's another case of we do things now and then come the end of May, people have to know that there are upfront things that we're already saying yes to that are gonna increase the budget,
Yep.
right? So we're doing, when we do these things and these financial things, and then also too, you know, we have so much insurance. Did we check with our insurance company to make sure that,
No, I didn't, and that would have been a good idea.
because that's what it's all gonna come down to, right? If something goes sideways, or whatever it is.
Yep.
Hopefully it's not. Most places, there's nothing goes sideways. Mostly, it all works real well and stuff like that. But let's say something goes sideways, they go after the deep pockets, right? That's what they do. They go
That's
after
right.
deep pockets.
Yeah, you mentioned the permitting, that's where I got confused.
Yeah.
You
Well,
can,
your name has to be.
the permitter can carry anything, it's the ownership has to be
Correct,
registered,
yes.
yes. Yeah.
I got another question. I don't see anything in there how much this is gonna cost.
So we have $50,000 in our budget for this year, and that's the going standard salary. Like I said, we didn't hire one yet this year, so we have the extra for the upfront costs to be included this year.
And I actually think something like this, because the people of Winston, the residents are gonna be paying for this, it should be put on a ballot question, at our budget, for them to decide whether they wanna pay for it or not. This is
Well,
not
I guess
just
the
about,
question here though,
the
Troy,
school
is
people.
do we approve the MOU right off the bat? But what I'd like to see first, Paul, is all the associated costs with this, not just the salary. There's the salary, there's the weapons cost, the ammunition cost. I'm assuming you guys, if we hire, this individual, you're gonna pay for training, permits,
That's all in the MOU.
licensing.
Correct.
You're gonna pay for all of that. I'd like to know what those costs are. You may find out from your insurance company that, oh, now you're gonna have an armed individual in the building. Well, the premiums are going to this, because there is a lot of, I mean, an unintentional discharge in the school. You could have, you saw what happened with the schools here with the parents. God forbid it ever happened. One unintentional discharge, you could have 27 lawsuits from traumatized families. Again, so just, I'd like to see a total of the upfront cost. It's not $50,000.
I can speak on this, and I definitely don't want to put words in Mr. Chagrew's mouth, but I can tell you that the budget that was established, that was passed, in the summer, he had stated that the money needed to bring this ASO on and all of the material, training, firearms, ammunition would be covered in the budget that was approved, by the voters back in August. So, what each line item is, Mr. Pozo, I don't have that answer. I know the number of $50,000 was in the budget for an ASO. This ASO, potentially would begin in, I believe, February by the time boards passed it, postings, interviews, holidays. So somewhere, we could potentially dial into the math. If you figure $50,000 divided by 180 days, you have how many days left from February to June?
$277 a day. I was thinking the same way you were. And we've already gone through how many days of school, 30? So 30 times 277.
30 times
It's
277.
83.
8,300. So $8,300 would be firearms could be a few $100s, training, ammunition. So I believe the $8,300 fully will take care of the training and the firearm, keeping in mind some of those costs then go away next year. You're not purchasing a new firearm every year. Training, I know there's an initial training for an ASO, but I don't believe it's a yearly. It's just it's a one-day recertification. So those costs come down. So I think the $50,000 number, depending on any contractual obligations in terms of salary increase, that may be your only exposure. Maybe a couple of dollars for recert, but other than that, the fixed costs are pretty much taken care of. Rounds of ammunition, obviously, there's recertification for not being an officer. I'm not going to use the wrong word, but target practice or,
Range time.
There you go, range time. There's a cost to that ammunition. We will use one of our officers if possible. That's a firearm certification officer. Can do it. They will pay for that time, but we're talking minimum amount of time at the range, maybe an hour or so, to get this particular individual recertified.
So one of the requirements is being a retired police officer with 15 years' experience. So they've had many years of training. It's just like Paul said, the ASO, one-day training.
That's your requirement, right? I just want to.
That's a normal ASO requirement.
That's a normal,
Either
but
former
I don't
military,
believe.
former police.
Okay,
Yeah,
former
we
military.
count the
So are
military
you
time.
guys just doing police, or you're allowing military as well?
The
You
job
said-
description does have. the
Either or,
posting,
okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted
as
to
military,
clean that up.
yeah.
So military or police.
Yep.
So.
And I
then
guess
just
if
to know, sorry, we are one of the few schools in the area that doesn't have either an ASO or SRO. We're not reinventing the wheel. I have Greg in my head because he always says that. We're not reinventing the wheel. I get that there could be a safety concern, but I think the bigger safety is external threats. Regional's had one for several years, and I don't know of any incidents, up there where there's been an issue with the gun or,
Yeah, I wasn't actually questioning the safety. I was questioning the total financials. So yes, it's a partial year this year. We just went through a really tough budget year.
That was
And-
budgeted for the whole year, just to correct you, that figure of
Okay,
50,000.
But next year, it's not gonna be $50,000. It's gonna be $50,000 salary, benefits.
There's no benefits for an ASO.
No
Being a
benefits.
retired police officer,
Okay, well, that's-
we don't
It's a
offer, it's just a
non-benefited
salary.
position.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we also haven't started the budget yet, so there's prime opportunity now to kind of get this moving forward so that we could build it in with all of those,
And again, like
incentives.
Candy, I'm not opposed to this. I have a grandchild in every single school system in Winston. I have one in Hillsdale, one in Pearson, one in Gilbert. So I'm all for it. But as soon as this goes through, we know the other schools, Hinsdale and Pearson, and to be perfectly honest, they're the more vulnerable students. High schoolers, you guys do the drills and whatnot, they're older kids, they think a little more forward. They
think
can
at the
listen
high
to
school you have-
instructions of the teachers, whereas the kindergarten, first and second graders, if there's a situation, are just lost. What do we do? They're looking for guidance, so it's almost more of a priority to me with the younger students than the older one. They're all a priority, but
Middle and high school populations are also very vulnerable,
Social media,
social media with a lot of, a lot of things going on, you see it in the news all the time. And even with all the mental health supports and the SEL, it's still the physical safety of the plant, that's very important, and it has to be a balance.
And like I said, I would love to see one at every school, and I am working with Winchester to help them, show them our process, if that's the route they go for now until, like, Mr. Marino said, the police department is fully staffed and we can all have an SRO, which is the gold standard.
Can we, like, approve this with the condition that you talk to our insurance company?
Of course.
And I'm assuming Greg has already talked to an insurance company?
I can check with our business manager and verify that.
So can we approve this on the condition that both entities confirm that insurance companies are okay with this?
I have no problem
I have no
on the town
problem.
side.
I'll follow up with, Mr. Harrington with what I find, so he
Just-
can let you know.
Just because
No, I haven't heard insurance mentioned, so I think it's a
yeah, leave it to
valuable question.
And-
And I
and-
work in insurance.
And again, for clarification, I'm not, it's not that I don't support this, but I'm looking at this for next year times 3.
But Bill, the reality is,
You
just
know.
like we did the ambulance, this is gonna fall into the category of, we have to do this and find the reductions in budget in other places, right?
I
But this falls
fully
under the
agree with
category
you,
of,
Bill.
we can't leave the kids exposed anymore.
I
Unfortunately, we live in
agree.
this world that we have to do it. So,
I fully agree. And it's gonna.
and if it balloons up to 60,000 with training and all the other stuff per person, that's what it is. It
Yep.
just, that's our reality today.
I just want to be abundantly clear with this board. When I call the insurance company, which will probably be tomorrow, is there anything that they would say that would then prevent me from signing the document? Like, I don't want to, and I will, before I sign my name, I will talk to the insurance company. If they say, obviously, if they say, by no way should you, not thinking they're going to say this, but I
Right,
want to be
or-
abundantly clear with the board.
or
I
We're
don't
gonna
wanna
cancel
sign
your
it.
policy, that would be a problem.
Yeah, we're going to cancel
Yeah.
your policy, okay, I'm not signing it,
Or
right?
should
We're
you
gonna
come back
raise
and
it, we're
say-
gonna increase your premium 100%, that would
Yeah,
be another
yeah,
problem.
It's gonna be a 75 or 100% policy
Okay.
increase, well, then we need to have a little discussion.
I would say, Paul, short of them canceling us, or any major, and that goes, major is a funny word, right, whatever that number
Yeah,
is.
define major
But any
for us.
significant change to the insurance coverage or premium based on this
Put
would
a
be.
break.
Then I'd put the brakes on it,
Okay.
and let's come back. If they go, no, you're fine, then,
Well, no, your fine's easy.
You're right,
You
right.
know your
But I
fine's
would
easy.
ask if the indemnification clause
Oh, yeah,
covers you.
I'm gonna send him the document,
Okay,
everything,
yeah,
and
because
I
we
may
may need,
not
if
have
we
my
need
answer
to
tomorrow.
update that, we
Yep.
can look
So-
at that as well.
I doubt you'll have an answer tomorrow.
Right, so
No.
what it basically is if they say, no, it's not covered. I don't, they're not gonna cancel our policy,
No, they're
I don't
not
believe they'll do that. They may say it's not covered, right? That's
But if it's
only-
not covered, it's not your employee. I just hope, trying to understand the town
Right,
side of it.
if Greg talked to your insurance company, he's covered, that's great. If he hasn't talked to the insurance company and you talk to the insurance company, they go, oh, wait a second. That's a different story. And the same thing with us is, yes, Gilbert's got the indemnification, but if they run out of money, it does bump over to the town because we're signing it, right? And we're gonna be part of it whether you like it or not. I mean, it's just how deep pockets work.
I agree, we need to check with both insurance
So I would
companies,
just-
because the indemnification's great, but if you've ever watched any court TV at all, these contracts are all great. You get a team of New York lawyers or a team of LA lawyers coming in, they're gonna look at this and say, yeah, let's just not even discuss this, here's what we want. So you really need to know that the insurance company on both sides really has our back.
I mean, because the boards here, the boards and commissions, like wetlands get sued, planning and zoning gets sued, a lot of people get sued, right? And your name's on it. The first time I got one of those, I got all scared, but, the town covered it and everything, it's normal course of action. But, in schools and every place you get sued, people get, when I was at Wamogo, if you get sued at Wamogo, they dragged Litchfield in because we shared classes with them at one point. Because they just are reaching for anybody that's in it. So I guess that's why the insurance is one of the most important
Well,
pieces.
the lawyer's motto is sue them all, let the
And-
jury sort it out.
And by no means am I trying to sway the board in any way. You're only insured to a certain dollar amount too. So I just put that out there. So you're only insured to a,
But, and it doesn't have to, well, the other stuff would be covered by them. Let's just say the person got in there and let's just say they had an interaction with a student that wasn't appropriate, right? But that's what happened, it's covered by teachers and whatnot like that too. But there's things that happen that aren't like a discharge all the time. It could be other things. As long as everybody's covered, I mean, that's why I brought that up.
I mean, this is a sad time because when I went to Gilbert, I'm not gonna say how many years ago, but a lot. I carried guns in my truck. I was in the parking lot. I had two rifles and a pistol in my truck at all times. Everybody did.
It was a different day and
We
age,
took classes
Troy.
on
I
gun
went to
safety.
Lewis Mills in Burlington.
No,
Same thing. I had
but
two
the
guns
problem
on the
is
back of the
today,
truck
it's
window.
mental health. And all this is gonna do is protect an outside source from coming in. So you still have the kids that have issues. They still could do it after school, go to their friend's house. There's still a mental health issue. Everybody's all worried about the police and pushing everything on them. It's the parents' responsibility. And it's the school's responsibility for mental health.
So
And
just-
everybody walks away from mental health.
Just so
have a
you're
question.
aware, I just want to answer Troy if I could. We do have 3 full-time social workers in our building, full-time. And we also have a CJR program with a psychologist. And the students are using our mental health services. Our 3 social workers last year had almost 2,600 touch points with counselors, with the students. Maybe multiple, it's the same student multiple times, but there was 2,600 touch points in the school year last year with our mental health counselors.
So how many threat incidents has happened at Gilbert School in the last, say, 5 years? That would need an officer there to intervene?
I
I-
would say less than 5, less than, yeah.
And
Not many.
as a grandparent, Troy, in my mind, to me, it doesn't matter.
I don't think you need a
I don't care
threat.
how many threat
Yeah.
points are in the past, it only takes once.
Lynn, did you have something?
Yeah, I did, and Holly answered that you have 3
3 counselors, social
full-time
workers.
social workers, that's.
And we have two females and a male, so there's, different relationships if they're comfortable seeing someone else, we feel like we have that.
3.5.
Yeah,
And
because
we have the
with CJR.
junior public counselors there as well.
It's a halftime, yeah.
Halftime.
And we have full-time CJR counselors, which are licensed therapists that are there, that are accessible throughout the entire year, including the summer. Students come in, families come in, they do intakes. They have, I think, over 130 clients just from the grades 7 through 12, which is pretty impressive when you consider we only have about 550 students. We also have 3 guidance counselors who aren't even included in the data that she was talking about.
And that will continue even with.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, if I can, not to get off track, but one question about your counselors. I'm fine with the students that come in and reach out to the counselors, that's great. Do you guys identify and have counselors reach out to the kids that are quiet, to the kids that aren't reaching out to the counselors that are sitting in the back of the room, don't interact with anybody?
Yes, we have programs starting from 7th grade. We have because, when they come in 7th grade, those are the students we don't know, that we haven't had for 5 years, so we started a program last year, which was called Hive Time, which basically gives all of the social workers access to all 100 7th graders and really kind of gets to know them from the beginning. And we have one amazing middle school counselor who also develops relationships with them. We do different touch points throughout the year with our faculty where we actually make it a point to sign our names to each student picture, and any picture, I just disassembled this data myself like 3 weeks ago. Any student's picture who has less than 3 signatures, which by the way, none of the students had, even the 7th graders who are brand new. Basically, I had each teacher sign off with any student that they felt they had a good relationship with, outside of academics, that they knew stuff about them, they could tell you how many pets they had, something about their family, that kind of thing. So again, I really feel that we pride ourselves on relationships. It's one of the NEASC survey findings that I think we had 98% approval from parents, students, and teachers. So it's something that we are really focused on. Again, you can't teach students much until they know that you care, and that's something that's basically the way we hire teachers. If they care about just their content, they're not for us. We need them to care about students first, and then they can get to the content. So we're very, very included in all of that stuff. We know what's going on with students. We have them stand outside the doors. If a kid looks like they're off, like usually they're smiling, hey, what's going on? and immediately we have the access now. I mean, just 3 years ago, we had one social worker for the entire school, and it was really becoming involved for even administration. I mean, I was going out on home visits, we had 2 APs doing it, and now because they are focused on doing those things, we can also focus on other things and do, you know, different programming for the whole school. So that's something that I, as principal, have definitely prioritized, and I feel like all of the data that has taken place in the past, like, 3 years has shown that, too.
All right, we're getting a little bit off track. Candy?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the town manager to sign the memorandum of understanding regarding school safety and security initiatives jointly enacted by the W.L. Gilbert School Corporation and the town of Winchester with confirmation first from the town and Gilbert Insurance Companies.
Okay, Candy, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, just real quick, this document has been used in multiple towns already with and we asked for the indemnification paragraph, which was number 11 that was added, and other than a few minor changes, it's the same document that multiple towns have used. One would believe that those towns also, you know, had insurance concerns and have looked into it, so I would assume that this is gonna go through. Once you talk to the insurance companies, I think you'll find that we're gonna be in good shape there, but.
Anything else? All in favor? Opposed? 6-1,
Thank you.
MOU passes.
And Paul Harrington, I will be in touch with what I find from the
Yeah,
church.
let's try and talk sometime.
Sounds good.
Excellent.
Moving on to item B, 24-43, proposed reallocation of ARPA funds.
Okay, so as we start to look at ARPA dollars, we start to look at potential clawback dollars in terms of money that will be unspent, knowing that we have to have a PO in the system by the end of the year. I come tonight with a new project that you haven't seen before, but the first, B and C are combined together, but they are 2 separate allocations. The first one is upgrading the audio and visual in the Hicks room and the blue room, which is across the hallway. The thought process is, first of all, upgrading all of the microphones that are in front of us. I think I mentioned at one of the meetings, I did bring in an audio expert to look at the room. These microphones are meant to talk just like this. Oh, you can hear me better. They are meant to be, you know, within an inch, and the microphone picks up. We will be looking to replace all of the microphones at the table and going with a microphone that is similar to just the base of the unit, that is going to pick up sounds much easier and are meant to be used at a distance and be able to capture the voice. The next item up would also be to change out the cameras so that we would have Zoom capability. The Zoom capability cameras, they're the Rally Logitech cameras. And I'm talking just this room right now. They will actually move by themselves. They will go to the member who is speaking. Their voice, I'm not the audio guy, but they go to voice and they move the camera. Keeping in mind though, full view will still remain on the board, but if we did have public weighing in, that camera would be better, and the camera would actually pick up the public that is making comment. The other item in this is actually switching this room, bear with me, in that you're going to walk in and the horseshoe will be over here, so no longer will that post be in the way. We will then move these screens in that you can actually see the screens when you're at the table and not have to turn your back. We will position the screens in that not only will the public be able to see what's on the screens, but also the board as well. So before you tonight on the first allocation is changing all of the audio around, changing the speakers, changing the microphone, and literally shifting the room. And bear with me for a second because I'm more of a visual person than I am the way of talking. Picture this, that you all will be sitting facing out this way. So the horseshoe will go like this. In fact, I have a pretty good drawing of it. Unfortunately, I'm gonna jump ahead. You'll see what the ultimate prize is, but this will be what the room will look like. keeping in mind that this is the carpeted area that we're on right now. That is the tile area. Horseshoe goes here. You obviously have the doors down here. You'll walk in. I'll explain the second part in a little bit, but that's what ultimately we look to change the room. We'll have a screen here. We'll have a screen here, in that the Board of Selectmen have a better view of the screens. So right now, tonight, and then moving over into the blue room, the blue room is used for several boards and commissions and for meetings throughout the day. We would look at being able to put Zoom capability in that room as well. We will mount a monitor in there, a TV with a computer, and have actual cameras in there as well. One camera that will be able to pick up the entire room and the audio in that room. So if a board and commission were to have a Zoom meeting, or any of our departments have a place to meet, they can all congregate in one area, be able to bring in an expert that may be somewhere else in the country, have that particular individual come on and be able to Zoom. So before you tonight is the amount of,
The first one,
14,000.
14,109 is the first one.
14,109, well, it's made up of several things. You have $11,040 for the Hicks room and $3,069 for the blue room upgrades. I did attach 2 quotes. If the money is reallocated, I will go out and actually get other bids on it. I did use this particular company in the past. They did a wonderful job, but I also like to save as much money as I can, so I know worst case scenario, this is the number that we're looking at. If I can shave a few pennies, I definitely will. But this will change the entire way we are viewed out into the public. Some of the advantages of going on Zoom as well as the YouTube channel is that we can record it, and possibly AI technology is coming out in that there could be a full transcript of the meetings as well. So we're looking at potentially lowering recording secretaries in terms of they are paid by the hour. There's a potential where they would review the AI, make any potential, changes that aren't perfect, but it could be a cost savings down the road. I'll open it up to questions before we move to the second one.
Anything from the board? Candy?
Where do we begin?
Well, I'm gonna try really hard to not make your balloon fly right down to the bottom. But when we had the ARPA money, we put it towards business development. And we did it with facade, and we did it with business openings. And if you look, on Main Street, if you look at some of the improvements that have been had and some of the businesses that have opened, it was from this bit of money. So I would like to have seen this money go back to businesses and business development rather than reconfiguring this room. And that's just my personal view on it. I guess, and that all goes back to economic drivers and everything that we're talking about in terms of money for this, money for that, money for this, for next year. So I don't know if there'd be a problem with the turnaround time with business development or facade improvements and whatnot. But that's kind of where I was hoping the ARPA money that we clawed back would go. As
So-
far as your plan and what you have planned, those are other technical questions. The only thing I would say about what you plan and stuff is I've seen this room done so many times now, and we never do it with the right amount of money, and we never do it right. We do parts of it, we try to get it right. We have that camera there, can zoom in, it can move, it can do all its thing with a controller. We have a panel that hooks the computer system up through Zoom. We don't even have a remote for this TV. So if we're gonna do the room, then do it right from the gate and not, I don't know if this amount of money fixes that. So I guess I have two comments that I'd like to see it for economic business development, and then if we're gonna do the room, do it right. So, don't
Mr.
mean
Mayor,
to,
and I can address them individually. Candy, I I can't agree with you more that I wish I could put this money towards economic development. My fear is with that economic development is you're relying on a particular business to dot the I and cross the T of December 31st of getting that PO into the system. Check it, and that's my fear of, can they meet that timeline or not?
Well, before when we did it, the reason you were able to claw back the money is because we gave them the money before they did the project,
Yep.
right? So, there might be people that know what they want to do, just need the funding to do it. But I'll leave the rest of the board to.
And then your second question, which is a great one, can we do it right? This particular individual where I got this quote from, I saw what he did in a prior town I worked in. They did it right. It's the same technology, it's the same microphones. If you ever have the opportunity, I urge you to go on the website, you can view all of the meetings that have gone on. You can hear the audio. This was a system that we fully looked at because we were pretty antique in the way we were doing meetings. Brought this individual in, and he was able to, make it a much pleasurable experience for not only the people in the room, also for people watching at home. Now, that may come back to bite me if it's not perfect, but I'll make sure it is.
A lot of wires.
There's a lot of, we ended up looking behind that box before you leave tonight. That's just a nest back there of wires, but he's gonna clean that all up. We're gonna simplify the system. And I own it if it's not perfect, but I'll make sure it's perfect. Right?
I happen to agree with Candy. I think that that money was allocated for the purpose of economic development, and it should stay there. I know you're concerned about the timeline, but I think you should reach out before you make a decision to make it to here. I mean, this is if we had extra money, I'd say, yeah, go ahead, do this, but this is not important. We need economic drivers, we need grand list growth. This does not create either one.
I need to speak on that as well. Lance gave out a report that was sent to planning and zoning, and he used the word potential 7 times in the document on different businesses. There's a possibility. I don't understand why you're not reaching out to those businesses with the money to have them use that money to maybe make the potential, a possibility, reality.
I think at this point, in terms of where Lance comes up later tonight, what's playing in my head the most is the clock is ticking. That's where my fear is looking at planning and zoning, looking to get approvals and all of that. That has a timeline as well that I don't know at this late in the game, being the first week in October, and having to make sure that POs and contracts are in the system by December 31st, that we can meet those timelines. Taking back even further, looking at the different programs that the town ran before, numbers that were thrown out were $10,000 facade grants, $20,000 facade grants. If we continue down that road, we're potentially looking at, rewarding 2 businesses. Break it down to, $5,000, you're looking at potentially rewarding 4 businesses. Is that enough to move the needle? Sure, those 4 businesses, but what is also saying the other people that come in and apply for the grant that get said no to? Do they pack up and say, well, you gave it to my neighbor, but you didn't give it to me? You picked winners and losers in terms of who you wanted to, quote unquote, give money to versus you didn't give money to. Right now, unfortunately, because we're so late in the game, I don't think there's enough money to go around to all of the businesses that potentially could use it. And having only $20,000, what can we do? Can we give it to 4 businesses? Okay, $5,000. It's a lot of money. Can you give it to 20 businesses? That's $1,000. But what are they going to do with $1,000? What are they going to do with $5,000? Something, but is it going to move the needle for that business? To really, really probably move the needle, you're potentially looking at, a $10,000 or a $20,000, grant or whatever have you. And by far, I would not give the money out because I had to go and claw back this money from potential businesses over the last couple of months. It wasn't an easy feat, but we got it. Are they going to be able to make that timeline of December 31st? And if they bring it in on December 31st, or they don't, we have no time to reallocate.
So
And-
I got a question. We weren't selectmen back when this all came through. How many businesses, took this as a, as an advantage for them? And I mean, I'm sure, was there a waiting line?
How many applied or how many?
Yeah, how many people applied and how many people used it? And was there a waiting line at the end that people couldn't get it because it ran out of money?
Yes. Josh had the list.
So I would
Yeah,
reach out to that person and say,
You do that. I mean, the fallback is also, you write the PO for this money on, December 20th.
right,
So, I hear Candy's point, Linda's point, Troy's point. Not that obviously, I support all the businesses in town. I talked to the business owners, I talked to 5 different business owners this weekend. But I really think this is, for me personally even, this is a huge necessity. We gotta upgrade this stuff. I try to watch all kinds of meetings, planning, zoning meetings, Board of Education meetings. I can never hear them. I'm either on my TV at 100%, and I'll hear one person talk, and I see this one's mouth move. And I gotta turn the volume up, walk up to the TV like, I just can't hear. So I read the minutes. The minutes are a minuscule condensed version of what actually went on in the meeting. So whether we do it now, but I think this is a super important plan. Our audio and what on here is horrible. It's absolutely horrible.
When we talk about economic development and putting money like this towards our businesses, to Paul's point, $1,000 for 20 businesses or even $5,000 for 4 businesses, what is that gonna do to move the economic needle in town? And particularly if you're gonna do any kind of a project like the facade improvements that was done, that's gonna require P&Z or ZBA or other board to approve it, if you started that tomorrow, by the time it goes through that process, and then get contractor bids, you'd never get this thing over the finish line by December 31st. Now, to Candy's point, if we wanna propose this and allocate the funds in December to see if there's something that we can do with the money that's gonna benefit economic development, great. But I agree with Bill. People try to watch our meetings. People try to sit in this room. I've sat in this room for swearing-in ceremonies, and you can't see through the post if you're sitting on this side of the room, because the podium is always over here. I think the re-layout of the room is great. I reviewed the information. I have a lot of this equipment in my business. I'm familiar with what setting up this room would be from a technical standpoint. I think I think it looks like it's gonna do the job. He's guaranteed it's gonna do the job. I support allocating this funds to fix a problem that we all know is here, because people who try to watch our meetings or any of the other meetings here, you can't hear anything. I've listened to it and turned the volume up all the way, and you can't hear half of it. So it's gotta get done at some point, and I think it's unrealistic to think that you're gonna put this $20,000 into some kind of economic development plan that's gonna move the needle for us by the end of the year.
And I think it's also important to note that the $20,000 originally was set up for a brownfield assessment for 10 Bridge Street. 10 Bridge Street, as I mentioned, is back on the market, potentially closing soon. I did speak with the attorney sometime last week. The current owners and potentially new owners want nothing to do with this brownfield assessment. They didn't want to have that anywhere potentially prohibiting them from closing. So that's an original. And then the second one is we did get we wanted to match some of the Volkswagen settlement grant to put in EV charging stations at 75 Raleigh Street. We've looked at the program. I can tell you that we're way short of coming anywhere near being able to fund those charging stations. There's additional cost to putting those charging stations in. So with this particular one, the two items that aren't going to move forward is the brownfield assessment at 10 Bridge, which was applied for with a potential owner. We'd have to go back to the state. The state says it can't be shifted into a new developer, so that's gone. And then the second one being the Volkswagen settlement grant to put in those EV charging stations. Unfortunately, we're gonna be short on those funds to even enact that project as well. So that's where this one comes from, which the original allocation was from the marketing and economic development activities. Those are the two projects that will not be moving forward. As I stated earlier, we are in the process of looking at these ARPA dollars, seeing what is out there, coming up with ideas. Do I think any of the ideas that were stated tonight are bad ideas? No, not at all. What's in my head right now is the timeline, doing some upgrades. This board obviously tells me what direction to move, I move.
Let me
You don't
ask
have
you one
anywhere
other
near
question on
enough
this.
money for an EV charger. Not even in the ballpark for an EV
We do
charger.
not, even with the Volkswagen grant.
Yeah, you don't have anywhere close.
Let me ask you another question on this, Paul, for the future, right? I agree with Troy, Linda, and Candy. I think it's important we do something to help the businesses. Right now, the ARPA dollars are gone, right? We're at the tail end of it. Now, up and coming, have you had Tom looking for, is there any other grants out there, Fed, state, whatnot, that we can apply for next year? Somehow that we could help, that facade, a lot of people didn't, a lot of business owner I've talked to didn't realize there was a facade program going on till a week before the deadline of the application. So, again, new notification system, new town website, whatnot. Is there some funding we're looking at in the future?
We
to
are
get in here
constantly
where we can
looking
help
at
these
every-
people?
Excuse me, we are constantly looking at every potential avenue of finding funding. If there's something that we think we have a shot, and it could be a small shot, we're applying for it. Tom, as you know, does an excellent job upstairs.
does.
Anything at all that we can possibly draw some connection to, we're out there applying for it. I mean, just to talk about, one of the things is, we saw that there was, and I'm forgetting the name, but anyways, we got $3,000 to help offset the costs of bulletproof vests for our police department. It was one of those things that Tom found, and we got $3,000. Does it buy us all, everyone in our police force a vest? No, but it's $3,000 less that has to come out of the town's pocket to do it. So, to your question, we are constantly looking at every potential. You're gonna see one that, we found, and within 4 hours, we got $20,000 for election security. We're gonna talk about that a little bit later on. So, we're constantly scouring, we're constantly looking at every email that comes in to try and draw some connection. I'll also note that we are just scratching the surface of ARPA dollars, meaning finding out how much money we potentially have. This could be it, and this could be the only reallocation. But there's 23 days left, 24 days left in the month. As of October 31st, that's when, that first meeting in November, I have to come before all of you and say, hey, we were, this was an unspent, this is unspent, we have roughly this amount of money, we can, potentially come up with new ideas. This was just something in the first 10 or 2 weeks or so that we sat down, looked at dollars. I know, I stated several times at meetings before that initially I was looking to claw back money that we gave out. We are done with the money that we gave out to non-municipal entities. Now we're in the process of holding our director's feet to the fire to say, are you putting a PO in? Do you have a contract? If not, on November 1, we're gonna reallocate. So I don't know where the number's gonna be. I'll know more on November 1st. So, to be continued.
I mean, if we don't do this, the day's gonna come where we're gonna have to budget for this.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, because I think it's important that we potentially talk about both B and C together, because one kind of goes with the other one, and here's why. So what B is to change out all of the benches that are in both rooms to seating. You'll see that there's a proposal that we received from several companies. They all kind of sell the same chairs. What we're looking to do in this particular room, obviously, as I stated, we're gonna move the horseshoe. We're gonna put chairs here, and then we'll have a gallery view over here. When you add up all of the amount of people that you can fit in these benches and the chairs in the back, we're actually adding, I believe, 5 additional seats. Plus, when they're chairs and you have a fuller room, we can bring in chairs from the blue room. We are looking to replace all of the furniture in the blue room, excuse me, not all the furniture, the chairs in the blue room, getting rid of the bench seats as well, changing that around. And then 3rd floor waiting area, just outside of Terry's office, and then also in Terry's office, just for rounding purposes, we're picking up a few new chairs to just change that look over there. But I think the 2 proposals kind of work hand in hand. If we don't flip the room, do you really need to go out and purchase new chairs? Question for the board.
Are these chairs over here too, in the carpet
Yes,
area?
so-
So you have chairs on both sides?
You have a gallery section,
Of
which would be
chairs.
here, of chairs. There are talks about potentially putting those chairs on an angle, but if we add the monitor there, the people in the gallery section can either look live or also look on the monitor over there and view the meeting. We're kind of looking a little bit like Washington when they have gallery seating, which isn't directly facing the board, but off to the side. So I thought it was important to just throw them both out there at the same time, because they kind of complement one another. If we shift the room, that pole's still gonna be an issue, because there's gonna be, you know, benches that could line up right with the pole, so the 2 projects kind of work together. So.
How much more seating do you get, Paul?
So you have 24 will go here. You have 24 that will go here, so roughly 50. And I think when we did a count in this room, I think we were just under 50 in terms of how many people we could fit.
On a
with the
bench.
on a bench and with the chairs around. Oh, and you do have a 70 person capacity in this room. So as I stated, if we do have a robust meeting and we have more public that comes in, we can grab potentially 25, the soon-to-be fire marshal's here, so we can grab 20 chairs. Well, actually, that's not true, because I have to count all of the Board of Selectmen. So we can grab roughly 10 chairs out of that room and bring it over here to allow full capacity in this room.
So quick question about the 2 quotes there. So we're giving up these 9 microphones for 6?
Correct.
So I assume that's a spatial?
Yes, because the microphones are a little bit, or not a little bit, but a lot better, and they pick up sounds better. The expert that we brought in felt that you didn't need to have a microphone in front of everybody. They would more or less ride right where the crease is between each person.
So these microphones, when people are doing this, that interrupts these microphones? Does it interrupt those microphones?
It's gonna be less, but there will be no eating, no drinking, because they are very sensitive
Well,
in
that's what I'm
terms of.
asking, is 'cause sometimes in design, they're designed not to pick up every single thing. Right? So, like, if we want to make a point, or usually my voice isn't a problem, most people hear it. Most people hear Paul's voice because of his gifted vocal cords there.
Me or him?
You.
Okay.
You, maybe just because I'm loud and worked in a gymnasium for a bazillion years. But some things are designed not to pick up everything, right? Because if we're sitting here doing this, if this is over here and I'm over here, then it's not picked up.
Correct.
But if these microphones that you're putting in here are so sensitive to pick up everything,
They're sensitive to sound. The paper
Oh,
ruffling,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
gonna deplete out a little bit.
well, not that I want to get into all the details of all this, but I think if you guys pass this, then I think we should have some conversations about, like, where the microphones and how sensitive they are, and the plan that you're gonna do here.
A lot of this stuff is built specifically for voice. It picks up voice and it's able to filter out
Well, hopefully.
other stuff.
I'll state that the microphones that would be potentially purchased are microphones that I've used in the past. I don't think I've ever gotten a complaint that somebody goes, I heard you rifling papers throughout the entire meeting, or any of the boards or commissions were
Well,
rifling.
like I said, if it passes, then, you know, then we could worry about specs on that.
And I don't see any mics on the Blue Room one?
The Blue Room is gonna use a different, excuse me, different technology.
Okay.
The Blue Room's Logitech camera has the microphones built in to it, and also a speaker as well.
And they've included in this, by the way, ceiling microphones that are made for conference rooms that will allow people speaking in the public to be picked up. Because we get meetings now where somebody doesn't necessarily come to the front table, they're making a comment from the back of the room, and while we can hear it here, nobody watching could ever hear it.
Well, that might be more exciting,
Yes.
Yes, excellent point, Mr. Marino.
because people might not wanna be heard.
I'll
And
also
if they'll be
note that
heard, it'll
we
be
will be
exciting.
switching out, if this goes through, the microphone as well, that goes for public input, if they're following the rules and come up and officially approach the board.
And my last thing is, just, if we do change this, need to make sure we have the space available for the Board of Education, because they have an extra member than we do. And one sits way over there in the corner, so we need to make sure there's an extra space in the horseshoe.
I can do that, but you're probably gonna have to up the budget a little bit. I mean, I'd love to make.
How many members on that board?
I think they have,
9 plus the superintendent.
Nine
yeah,
plus the-
so 10 chairs instead of 9.
You know, I did not price out, obviously, a
Furniture.
new desk.
Yeah.
And adding a section onto it. I'm more than happy to look at adding a section on. We also then need to talk about, this is obviously aged a little bit, so that new section, I don't care how hard you try, probably isn't gonna match perfectly. Is an option where, can you just add a potential little, by little table, I don't mean little by any stretch of the means, but can we purchase a table that just kind of sits there, put a chair there, and serves its purpose
For those meetings.
for that one particular meeting? Because I can imagine if we have to go out and build a whole new desk, that's gonna get expensive, or to add a section to somewhat similar match it, that's gonna get expensive. You know, I obviously, like the Board of Education, want them to feel at home, but I also am worried about costs as well, and by doing too much, I think we may drive the price up a little too high.
Anyone have anything else?
So I'm going to make the motion. I move that the Board of Selectmen reappropriates $14,109 previously allocated for marketing and economic development activities using American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, dollars. Funds will be reallocated as follows: $11,040 to the Hicks Room upgrades project and $3,069 to the Blue Room upgrades project.
And I'm gonna second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? 4 opposed? 4-3, motion passes.
And connected to that one will be a second motion that reappropriate $11,000 from the Business Startup Program and Marketing and Economic Development Activities Project funded by the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, dollars to the Town Hall Seating Replacement Project.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Bill. Further discussion?
I'm disappointed that you didn't even put anything down from any local businesses that make furniture
For chairs?
for chairs. The brewery did, but you didn't.
When you say the.
Hitchcock chair,
Okay.
nothing, not even a bench from them.
Well, we were looking at chairs, but go back to a previous statement that I am gonna go back and go out to bid on not only the audio, but also the chairs as well. But by all means, we can go out to a local vendor and get a bid, get a proposal from them. This is just an idea of what it could potentially cost. If Hitchcock or any of the local furniture companies come in, they'll definitely have a bite of the apple, and if they can, worst case scenario, to design the room that I think would work the best, bringing in some of the experts, but by all means, we'll go out and get local vendors to bid on it, and if they can get it, by all means.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? 4 opposed? 4-3. Passes. Moving on to item letter D, 24-08, resolution supporting the acceptance of fiscal year 24 rural and non-metro election infrastructure funding.
So this goes to a subject that I think I was interacting with the board, but that Mr. Pozo brought up. Are we out there looking for potential, any type of funding sources? Tom, on a random Tuesday, saw that this particular agency was giving out $20,000 to towns. Within 4 hours, the town was awarded a $20,000 grant. He worked with the registrars, coming up with several items that total $20,000. There's no match, obviously, on the town's part. What it does is, the registrars is looking to send out a postcard sooner rather than later, reminding everybody about Election Day, early voting, also to pay for poll workers, also to pay for security, and any other items that they're going to need on Election Day. So instead of it being, necessarily funded completely by the town, this $20,000 grant is gonna help offset some of the costs that the towns were going to pay. Again, there is no match, there is no obligation in terms of the town having to do anything. The money that the registrars put together with the items that were already approved from this particular agency, this is just more or less letting you all know, we went out, $20,000 grant, and hopefully that you all will accept it so we can spend the money.
We have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous? Letter E, 24-45, consider and possibly act on the adoption of an ordinance to create a tax abatement for volunteer firefighters and volunteer emergency medical services. First meeting of 3.
And I'm gonna ask that our fire chief, as of now, come up and join us. Hi, chief.
I'll take out my money.
I know you would.
And Jeff, for the
Oh, yeah, Jeff, come on. Oh, yeah, please, Jeff. I saw you the whole time. So please come up and join us. We did have a preliminary discussion about this item at the last Board of Selectmen meeting. I didn't want to make it as the first meeting because I thought it was important that bringing up this suggestion, getting the temperature of the room, seeing if we should move forward with the 3 meetings, and it felt that the board was ready to move forward with at least the 3 meetings. So tonight would be our first meeting. Pending question that was out there was the potential cost associated with it. And I'm gonna turn this over to our fire chief, Jamie, to speak on that.
So we compiled the list, we basically did a 3-year, moving forward. Obviously, it's all guesstimates, is how many new members we'll have and how many would buy houses, as we discussed. But basically, if I add the 2 together, we're probably looking around $60,000 to $65,000 potential per year as we go for the next 3 years. That's, the best guess we can have. I did math on, possibly 5 new members per year, but if we get 5 new members, it doesn't mean that they're gonna be here for the next full year, because, we lose members as we gain members, so it was really trying to figure out how many people are young and may buy houses, as we discussed. So it's really back and forth, but, we kind of compiled this list of the same, and, I think $60,000 to $65,000 a year would be what I would suggest a budget for this.
So I would just add to that, my numbers are based on maximum exposure, right? So that's every possible member earning the maximum potential benefit, which I don't like to say this, but it's just unrealistic to think that every member is gonna earn that potential maximum benefit. Just based on the experience of the amount of time that our volunteers currently have now, they're not just gonna magically be able to create more time. I mean, some of them, sure, to try to get a little bit more of a benefit, but for everybody to receive maximum benefit, I just think is unlikely. So I think that $65,000 number is certainly your maximum potential exposure.
So guys, what do we normally put aside for that now?
0.
Oh, I thought we already had a program for this.
So we have a pay-per-call program that's
Right, so-
$25,000.
Okay.
And
But
then
that's
the-
separate from this.
Right, that's totally
That would
separate. We're gonna continue that, and then this is additional, so, you know, like, when I came 2 weeks ago, it was $36,000, and yours was 9,000, so 46,000 for round numbers. And as we added these together, you know, like we said, you know, the maximum exposure, 65,000. I know it all has to come from somewheres.
On top of the,
Pay-per-call, yes.
on top of the
The
25,000.
25,000, yes.
So we're looking at 90.
We're looking at 65 more than what we're already spending.
Right.
At the maximum, yes.
And this is volunteers only. This is no one
Correct.
who's salaried in any way, shape, or form.
The statute is written in that they have to be volunteer. Nowhere can stipend. I think they can't receive more than $5,000 a year. Something.
Nobody
the
gets
statute's
that,
written,
so-
yeah.
So the paper call does, no one gets near that.
No.
Right.
So, I've been thinking about this stipend for training, because I keep thinking about how you get new people. Because I don't know that this abatement's going to get you new people. It's the hope, right, that you get new people?
To make it attractive, correct.
Right, so I'm not sure that that alone gets new people. So I don't know if there's an appetite up here to add a $2,000 stipend for when somebody finishes their training and stays with us for a year.
So that would be certified in firefighter 1 or EMT.
Right, because they go through like a bazillion hours to do
Right,
it weekends,
that's why I think that
Tuesdays.
that's equivalent.
Are you thinking about that in addition to this tax program?
Well,
Yeah, it'd be a
well,
one-time.
when we were at $40,000, I was thinking of as an addition to this program. But,
This is your maximum exposure, you know.
What I-
that's
Well,
what
I know,
we're-
but you have to plan for maximum
Correct.
exposure, right? So, I mean, the heart of the issue is getting volunteers, new people, right? We want to thank the people, we
It's-
want,
it's-
we want to thank the people that are there, and we know the value of people that are there. That's why we've done pay-for-call, you know, in the past and whatnot. But one of the reasons we made a full-time paid fire chief too was also, part of it was about recruitment, right? So when we look at the data supporting these decisions, you know, where are we and things, so, I don't, you know, I just think that if you're gonna try to bring people on, then there's, the biggest hit is in the beginning with the amount of training to get into that firefighter 1, right? Because it's so many hours. I mean, I know I volunteer a lot of hours, but I don't know if any one year I devote that many hours to, you know, my other things that I do or whatnot. So that's why I was thinking about adding a little stipend into this, because if it's only 5 people a year, right? How many new people do you get a year? Ambulance.
So it's glad you asked, because that's one of the ways I compiled these numbers. So I looked at the historical data, and we average 3 to 4 new people a year, but we only retain 2 of them, 1 to 2 of those people. And so if you're talking about a program where they're not, you know, realizing that benefit until a year, or maybe a year after their training is done, and then they give us a year after they're finished with training, because they're an active member, I don't know if that would be a big number. I mean, just.
So how about you?
Likewise, the same. I mean, we've had probably 5 people go through Fire One over the past year, just over a year. But some are going away to college, so they wouldn't really count in that number. So, yeah, I mean, we could have up to 5 a year, but probably would average more like 2 to 3.
2 to 3.
So a follow-up for us is, when I looked at the data this afternoon, I think the last 4 or 5 new people that we've had, they either didn't own property in town or didn't live in town. So it wouldn't even be all of the new people, right? I'm assuming that would be only a benefit if you lived in Winston.
And that's another thing I actually like about this, is it encourages people to potentially move here, stay here, whichever.
Well, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was to your point, right? What are we gonna do? Because, again, you had 5 people, you retained 2, neither of them are property owners. Was your point basically stating, what do we do for the people that aren't, they're a renter?
So
Or
you could
a
give
young guy
this,
that lives with his parents still, you know?
you could give this extra stipend to anybody who volunteers, and we only take people within the town of Winchester currently
Right,
as firefighters, so they're all gonna live in town.
right.
But likewise, if the ambulance takes people out of town, it still should be, if they stay as a member for a year after their training, I can't see why you wouldn't, because they put the hours in. I would use the word active in that, so that they meet the active training. And whether they live in town or not, at least they could get that $1,000, $2,000, whatever it may be.
That'd be a one-time payout, as opposed to this would be annual. If you lived in town and you were a volunteer and you owned a property, you'd get this
I'm not
abatement
saying,
annually.
I'm not saying to take this out, I'm saying
No, I
this
know.
is an addition. Because I think getting more people is the goal. I mean, the paying for expenses and stuff like that is
And I
also.
think it's an important discussion. We're gonna have, I know I'm gonna hear feedback tomorrow, the day after, whatnot, from, I can't believe you guys are thinking about spending more money, but what people need to understand is, to me, volunteers are extremely important. I would much rather have 10 volunteers come in than have to put in another paid, EMS, another paid firefighter. It's gonna cost us a whole lot more money,
Well, we experienced that in the last budget.
Exactly.
We know exactly what that costs with the ambulance crew.
And these things are not gonna stop that from happening. In the future, you will need to pay firefighters. You're still gonna need to have those volunteers, because the town of Winchester cannot fund enough paid firefighters when you need them. You can't fund enough ambulance people. So it is taking the place of paid people now, but down the road, in the future, you will need to pay people, and you're gonna need to have that volunteer support on top of it. So this is gonna you're gonna need to keep this funding going, as well as down the road when you do have paid people. Torrington has a dozen on shift, and they still have volunteer departments, and they call them mutual aid for volunteer departments. So the future's there, it's just down the road. This is trying to get as many volunteers as you can now, so you can keep moving that further down. And hopefully you can keep moving that goal further and further.
Yeah, I mean, Torrington's a much larger town with a lot more activity. But I agree, but I personally think we need a more robust recruitment and retention. We gotta look at that. I mean, yes, we're gonna maybe need, I would prefer to see more people interested in volunteering and, how do we change that culture? Get these kids to want
There's a
it.
lot of volunteer
Training.
work out there, whether it be church groups, baseball team, local baseball. You have hard times getting volunteers to fill board positions that are 2 hours
So,
a month, correct?
But my point being, how do we change that culture, right? Look what's going on down south right now. There's honestly, right now, there's not a shortage of volunteers, because they were left by themselves.
But it's also a clear duration, right? Storms are a clear duration, and
Well,
you're
true,
gonna
I
help
guess,
people
right.
right there. So if you're gonna do recruitment and you're gonna do retention, if we're gonna do an ordinance, we should address both. And retention is the $1,000 of property taxes, and then, and not everybody's jumped at the idea of a stipend, but I will say that every coach of anybody in middle school or high school is paid. Anybody that plays on a travel team, some of the AAU travel teams, those coaches are paid, right? They're paid stipends for the season. So there's a lot of people that are paid stipends for their work. We get a little bit of money. Not that it pays for everything, but, You know, we get 1,000 or 1,500. So
Why I ran.
that's why you ran, is to get the money? Yeah, okay.
So if you would like to see that added to this, I'd be more than happy. You tell me the dollar amount, and I will add that in,
Yeah,
if
well, I
it's
guess,
not too
you know,
late.
I know the rest of the board has to weigh in too, but the thing is that, with the stipend, it has to be after they serve the year, because we've trained so many people in this building lately that stay with us for a short period of time, and then they're off to other places, and we've done all the training, and then they go to another town and fulfill the certification role, and.
What's the amount of money you think you need in a stipend 12 months after they complete training to make it interesting? Does $1,000 do it? Does $2,000 do it? What's the number?
Anything's better than zero, I suppose. 1,000, 2,000.
How many hours involved to get training for Fire One?
240, just in firefighter one. That doesn't, so the Windsor Fire Department doesn't send, if you join tomorrow, we don't send you the next day. It takes you 6 months to work up to that point. We make sure that you're ready, because it costs you $1,250 to send each person, plus the gear that we buy and so on. So we make sure the person is ready before we send them. So they're gonna be in the fire department for probably a year before they get certified as an interior firefighter. So basically, we'd have them for 2 years. So the stipend, you know, I mean, you could calculate by hour or what have you, but I mean.
You don't want to do that number.
Exactly.
It's
So,
way below minimum wage.
$7 an hour.
It's $8.33 if you did $2,000 for their 240 hours.
I was counting their year before that.
May I weigh in just a little bit? So the way ordinances are written, and you can see at the top, it says addition of a new town ordinance regarding tax abatement for volunteer firefighters and volunteer emergency services. I think potentially you would be looking at 2 different ordinances.
Well, where do we have the pay-for-call right now?
so that's in the policy.
It's in policy or in ordinance?
It's not an ordinance, it's
It's in the
Because
policy.
we
So
could put it in policy.
that's the other option, is that I could write a policy, and as long as you approve, you know, usually the policies for the fire department don't come forth, but the funding does. So we would just have to add a line item, I suppose, in the budget, in both budgets, that would say,
It would seem to me you can do a stipend under policy as where
lot
this is
easier.
actually, because we're involving tax collections, you need an ordinance for that.
so, boy, I can work on that.
Well, and then my other question, which we didn't define, but I know the answer, but I just want the board to weigh in, is if this ordinance were to pass, when would this board like it to start? July 1st, 2025? Okay.
Because we don't have funding right now.
We don't,
Right.
yeah, we don't have funding. And I guess funding is a interesting word, because it's not anything that this particular board would fund, but you're gonna take it on the revenue side.
You just have to plan for it in the revenue side.
Yeah, you will lose it on the revenue side. You will not see it as an expense. You will see it as,
Do you know, aside from recruitment, have you put a pencil to current members? I mean, you said total exposure is possibly 65,000, right? But if we paid this July of last year, or this year, what's the number?
That's my 36,000 and your 9,000.
And it's actually, you know, this is maximum exposure, so it's really 7,000 for us. The
That's
number I
right.
gave you last two.
Right, and my number was,
This is maximum.
So 42.
So we would have recognized 42,000 less revenue this year.
But you'd have to list it as an expense to drop it out of the revenue. Where would you how could you drop it out of the revenue without listing it somewhere?
well, no, it is coming in.
It's
So
coming
the way the statute's written is they would have to pay it. So they're clean in terms of their tax bill, but it would come out of, tax refunds would, so.
So I guess we'd have to budget.
Yeah, it's a bigger, I know where, yes, so I'm gonna stand corrected, it's that number, well,
Could be under the
interesting
fire
we say
department.
that, because we're gonna start looking at budgets a little bit different, we're gonna budget for prior year tax refunds and current year tax refunds, which this board has not seen, but after getting prepped for budget mode, we're gonna start accounting for all of these things that happen throughout a year, so it's even clearer than before that we have prior year and current year tax refunds. because I'm seeing things that are happening now, and I'm like, what? Like, that, we have to show that, and we will, so.
So, real quick too, and maybe Peter, you might be able to answer this, because I see your flyers every once in a while, you send them out around Winchester Center and whatnot. You guys look for also non-firefighters for the fire department, correct? You're always looking for volunteers for,
Right, they help with our finances, with help fundraising, with other things with the building. things like
maintaining the
that.
building, the works. Do you guys employ that same tactic? No, you're looking for firefighters?
We
and
need
you're
people to
looking for-
ride in the seats.
But he wants people that ride in seats too, because
Well, I know you desperately
We
need
have to
that.
have people
Right,
ride
right.
seats.
'Cause this
we're
all
at a point
applies-
now where we don't have enough.
because this applies to them too, this whole thing.
Oh,
Right,
oh,
right.
correct, correct.
Right.
But
They're not
I
using
know he's also always looking for
We sent out
support personnel.
Approximately 450 flyers at the end of May, and included an application for the department for firefighters, and got none returned. So, I mean, we've had open houses, we've handed out paperwork, we've talked to people. Even had a member come from out of town, sort of close enough, sent them to training, spent approximately $2,000 to train them, and they're gone. A little over a year. How the turnover goes.
Anything else from the board? Do we have a motion?
This is one of 3 meetings, so, before we potentially move off of the subject, is there anything that this board needs for the second meeting of this particular ordinance? A question, some facts?
Well, we do need to motion it to move it to the second
To move
step.
it to the second. So
It
is there,
does need to be recorded, so. So I would make a motion to advance to the second meeting, the consideration and possibly acting on the adoption of an ordinance to create a tax abatement for volunteer firefighters and volunteer emergency medical services.
Second.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous?
Now with this, remember, you have to publish the ordinance on our website.
it's there, and it's also legal noticed as well.
Yep, so it just, it's there, but you also have to mark it moving to the second.
Move it to the second, okay.
Glenn has all that, so.
So we're gonna have a stipend?
The stipend's gotta be handled on a different.
They're doing
Oh,
policy.
that's right, it's gonna be policy.
Don't forget.
Sorry.
Why don't you come back with something, Jamie, for that?
That'd be, and I would mean it for people that are, you know, interior firefighters and people that have to do that,
EMTs.
EMT, the training course.
What's the hours for the EMTs, just curious?
It's a little under, well, so to get your certification, it's a little under 200 hours.
Okay, so both are in the 200 plus or minus
Area,
neighborhood, yeah.
they're
Lot of
they're
work.
in the range, but
Yeah.
like Chief Agassi said, that's just to get your ticket to ride, right? I mean, then we have training upon training upon training. Some of our people take a full year of meeting with a mentor before we're comfortable clearing them, so.
And how does policy work? He just needs to come back and present the policy to us for approval? Is that how that change happens? I mean, I understand how we do the ordinance. How does policy work?
So typically, the Board of Selectmen don't always approve the policies, but I'd be more than happy to bring the policy forward. Because in the end, when we put money in a budget, you have to approve it
Right.
anyway.
But
So
we did approve the pay per call.
you pay per call, exactly.
approved that.
You approved the pay per call, and I don't know if you saw a policy or not on that.
But we just saw the numbers and,
Right, so
How you all
we
work.
can put it budget, and I can write the policy to,
because you keep the policies internally.
correct, and we're working on a new website so that all of our old policies were on our website. That website went away, so we're working on building a new one, which all the policies, so they're open for anyone to see. It's not, we don't have secrets. If there's anything you'd like to see for the next meeting, if you have questions, please let Town Manager Harrington know, and we'll get you the information
Well, I
you
think
need.
you have some time because we won't need it until we budget, until
Well, you have to-
January when he starts moving into budget.
I'm just thinking if before the next meeting, you have another vote on this, and if you have any more questions, just let me know.
And when would we, what would we do with it in terms of, people that have recently trained? Are we gonna wanna retro any of that? So I think we need to kind of think about, do you have people that are currently in training process that we need to consider? I think there's a lot to look at there, not just.
We don't
When do we
currently.
start it?
But
Go ahead, Denny.
No, I was just, I mean, we we always do, right? So we have, you know, there's one person we just cleared, he doesn't own real estate in town. There's another person that's almost done, we were gonna clear her on Sunday when I worked with her, but she wasn't quite there yet. She just started college, she doesn't own real estate in town.
No, but I'm thinking more about the stipend, right? So when do we start that? If we're gonna write this policy,
Right, but I think the question was, is anybody in training? So I'm just recapping, and there's another new one that's just started her training process. So we always have people in training. But
But when the
by
question-
time they're cleared, it might not be,
budgeted, so.
they might not
we'll
earn
go
that
with our
stipend by
budget
the time they're cleared.
2025.
To answer your question, what we'd have to do for budgeting for the next fiscal year is look backwards and say from
right, so we wouldn't be able to
Who
start
would-
it until the next fiscal year.
next fiscal year, and we would know how many people at that point have completed Fire One and are coming up on their year or have just completed a year. So the first year may be more costly than,
And you just have to think about, you know, what's the cutoff, right? If someone is just finishing by the time we have this budgeted, or we want to look back and say, okay, if you finished within the last 12 months, I mean, just kind of think about how you want to implement that.
I believe there's a lengthy discussion because we do have some veteran firefighters and EMS workers that you also don't want to leave a bad taste in their mouth that you're rewarding this new crew while they've dedicated, 15, 20 years. So the chief and I can definitely sit down and dial in.
that's always been my concern. We've spoke about this before, but I think you have to start somewheres. Unfortunately, whether,
But that's the thing is, it's kind of like a lot of things that have happened throughout time is things start and you didn't have it. And then you should be happy that the new people will have it, right?
100% agree. I
Because
also
you're putting
don't
in,
want to lose
because you're
anybody.
putting, but you're putting in an abatement, you've already done the pay-per-call, some people still have their pensions, right? So there are still things that people have gotten over time, right?
And I imagine a lot of the volunteers are happy to have new people coming in and see that support and know that, particularly if you've been doing it a long time and you're getting closer to retirement, knowing that it's going to perpetually continue and, there's a
correct,
camaraderie, I think, within.
correct.
And
I think your legacy individuals and your veterans, very few of them are gonna be upset if they see new people coming in, getting
They're
trained.
probably more
and
worried
they know
about
that there's a
The
future for their
longevity of
legacy,
the
right?
departments in general, right?
Right.
Correct, correct. And like I said, we have to start somewheres, and if you're willing to put money towards new members coming in and give them a stipend, then let's move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Moving on to item F, 24-46, consider and possibly act on the proposed purchase of the emergency alert system.
So this system goes back to when we had lost water for a day, a way of communicating with our residents, a simple way of communicating with our residents. This is a system that a few communities have unlocked. I will note that we do have a very scaled-down version of Everbridge that the state buys us. It's when a real catastrophe is about to happen. We would still need to reach out to LCD to push the message out. This would allow us to bring it in-house to send out messages to any individual that has signed up to be notified. Everbridge does have a bunch of phone numbers from the state of Connecticut 211's website. Unfortunately, they will then need to re-register for the town of Winchester. So then now we do have access to their particular email or cell phone number to text them. I did send out the quote originally a few weeks ago after I received it. As you can see, it's $5,000 per year. The initial setup fee is a $400 fee. This is a recurring cost for every 12 months. So it would just be the $5,000. It would not be the $400. Keeping in mind that is set at 10,000. If we have a population growth, which I hope we do, that number will change. But I believe for every 1,000, I should have done the math earlier. Whoops, did that wrong. Can't be right. So 1,000 people will probably cost us an additional $500 a year. So there was some questions, who's gonna use the system, who has access to the system? Something that is obviously, something I'm sensitive about, because that is very sensitive information. When somebody goes on, if we do unlock this, if somebody goes onto our town's website, gives us their phone number and or email, we would have access to be able to send them messages 24 hours a day. I did attach a policy with your packet. It does, where is it? You have it there, but I should have it as well.
It's in here.
I know it is, but I gotta look at it. I want to just talk about some key points. So, first of all, who's going to have access to the system? Originally, it'd be the town manager and the system administrator. Open for conversation, but the system administrator, in my eyes right now, would be our emergency management director. Those two would have the blanket access. We would then have authorized users as well. Some simple authorized users could be the chief of police and the fire chief, potentially the fire marshal. All messages would need to be approved by the system administrator or the town manager. These authorized users simply can't go on the system and send out a message by themselves without the approval of the town manager and or the system administrator. Few things. One, we want to make sure the message is right. That's important. 2 sets of eyes, 3 sets of eyes is always better than 1 set of eyes. And does that message that that particular user looking to send out meet the qualifications of what we all believe that this system will do? Some of the Everbridge uses, as I've noted, life-threatening emergencies such as natural disasters, fires, floods, etc. Crimes or incidents posing an immediate threat to public safety, keeping in mind that we can geo-target a particular area as well to say, stay inside. There may be an incident going on up around the lake or in Winchester Center. We can geo-target areas. This one would have came in handy a few weeks ago. Utility emergencies such as water main breaks or power outages, road closures or major traffic disruptions. As we start to unlock more and more roadway work, we can geo-target a particular area to avoid the area. We can also then send it out to everybody as well to avoid that area as well. Public health emergencies and other events deemed necessary by the town manager or their designee. Procedures for sending out the messages, as we talked about, that they have to receive approval from the assistant manager, from the system administrator or the town manager. Alerts have to be concise, clear, provide essential information such as the nature of the emergency affected areas and actions and so on and so confidentiality and privacy. Those are worth a weight of gold, those phone numbers and those emails. Any company in America would love to be able to have access to your email address and to your text message. Well, they're confidential, it's private, they can't be downloaded and sent out and sold to any agency out there. And then any violation of this policy, you could be terminated, disciplinary actions, and up and including termination. I think that is important because when we send out a message, that message is going to be read by hopefully as many residents as we can. I will state that this system is only as good as the amount of subscriptions that we have. So if we were to unlock this particular item, I think it's imperative that the town, the Board of Selectmen, and anybody tries to get as many people to sign up for this particular. If you have an opportunity, I urge you to go onto Torrington's website. They have unlocked Everbridge. It takes probably 90 seconds to opt in to this particular messaging system, but we do need to do a job of letting our residents know that this system is available. Some of the items that we've talked about privately and also together is when we send out tax bills, we would obviously list that they can sign up, put a QR code so they can just use their phone. It goes directly to the landing page on our website. But again, this system is only as good as our subscription base. With that, I would open it up to questions that the board may have.
So in looking at this, it appears that there's a variety of different ways that communications can go out. Texts, it appears that there's an Everbridge app that people can download. There's a web widget that you can download. and get your notifications through there. Does it make phone calls too, Paul?
A reverse 911, it does not do a reverse 911.
So it's not gonna leave a message that there's an emergency, but all these other ways will be notified.
All those other ways will be notified. Statistics have proven that when you're getting a number that you don't recognize, what does everybody do? They just hit the button and ignore the call. Whether you check the voicemail or not, that's up to each individual person. Items that immediately have eyes on it, our text messages are read within seconds of somebody receiving it, and emails are within minutes of somebody receiving it. So Everbridge feels that those two avenues are the two most important avenues. There are people that just want to be notified via an app they would get. And again, I would urge people to probably either get the text message and or the email, because if you don't have the notification turned on your phone to see that little red #1 sign, that app hasn't really served its purpose unless you're going in there every couple of minutes to see, has something been updated? But if the notification setting is turned off on that particular app, it's only when the user goes in, they will see that there could be something going on in town.
This appears, I'm sorry.
I have the app, because Torrington has it, and I signed up because of my father. So I get alerts from Torrington and whatnot. And then this one, you can sign up for a State of Connecticut Department of Emergencies, also Office of Governor. So you could, so it does have this, but it also just texts you,
Yes.
emails you.
Have you ever gone, so it talks about a audio bulletin board, Candy. Have you ever gone in Torrington's to listen to a message? Because I can imagine a situation, there's an emergency, a text comes out and says, evacuation order, I'm, making it up, but evacuation order for something, and then you could go to the bulletin board and get more details, is
No,
what I'm guessing.
I've never done that, because it's, the stuff that comes out, that mostly I've gotten are the, usually it was like the tax bills, you get a little notice your taxes are due. Yay, we already knew that, but in case you forgot. And then the other thing it does is, like, if there was, I think one time there was just like a security thing, be careful around your house, there's, been some police activity in your neighborhood, stay inside kind of thing. They're rare, I don't get that many from them. So like the system wouldn't be something that should be overused. If it was overused, say, hey, we got the Fall Foliage Festival, that might be an overuse of it,
Yeah, I
because-
don't, I wouldn't see it for that. It's strictly for emergencies and
It's the boy that cried wolf. You definitely want to use it for its intended purposes. If you're just gonna quote unquote spam our residents, I think when they see some type of alert come in, they may not pay as much attention to it. Selectwoman Perez brought up a good point. The user does have the option to either sign up for text, email, or both. So if you want to really get notified, you can have your phone go off in two different applications, either text or email or both.
And even though public works situations are not an emergency, it's a really great tool for that. If you're gonna pave, or there's gonna be disruption in the road, or the road's gonna be closed, something like that, even, you try not to put like Fall Festival on there, but I mean, that's because the neighborhood needs to know where things are at.
or when the tree went down and East Wakefield
and the
was
road's
closed,
closed,
right? I mean, that's.
Well, let me
I
give,
was talking about that geolocating.
the geofencing, Troy, let me give you a great example of the geofencing in public works. We tried as hard as we can when we were chip sealing a couple of the roads. We needed cars removed from the area. We went out, we knocked on doors, we put flyers. Well, guess what? There were still cars on the road the day we went in to chip seal. The cars had to be towed and everything like that. In this particular situation, we can geofence that particular road to say, reminder, cars are to be removed by 6 a.m. in the morning. We're coming through and we're chip sealing. I guess most importantly, you didn't tell them. Well, we're unlocking, potentially unlocking more ways of communicating with our residents, important information, so we don't get caught with, you didn't let me know. Well, we're trying.
As you know, I'm not one to keep adding stuff to our budget, but this actually is something I think that the town really needs and will utilize in a great way, especially in the winter coming where you have parking bans and stuff like that can be utilized.
Why don't you make the motion, Troy? Go ahead.
Well, and I see,
Go ahead, Troy. Why don't you make the motion?
Paul, I see this is, I think you're automatically, You're automatically signed up with the National Weather Service, so if there's a severe
Yes.
weather alert in, it says you're up to one county, so like in Litchfield County, it will automatically push that
It'll
notification out
piggyback
through
out,
this?
correct, yes.
So I just have a couple of quick questions. One, quantity 10,000, is that 10,000 residents or 10,000 people that sign up?
The initial amount is 10,000 residents. It's the lowest number that they'll start an actual contract for.
Okay.
So, more than likely, I'm not, again, I hope we have that population growth, that I'll be coming back to you guys and saying, hey, this has gotta go up to 5,500, because now we have 11,000 subscribers, which means our population has growth. Everbridge doesn't write a contract for under 10,000 subscribers.
Okay.
Is
And
it subscribers or is it residents? Because he asked a question and you said subscribers and residents in the same sentence.
Well, it's an interesting number in this town, because we have 11,000 residents, but that's also including 6-year-olds that don't have phones. I guess they could.
No, but I mean, but is it, does Everbridge charge by the census number or do they charge by how many
By
people sign
subscribers.
up? By
How many-
subscribers.
yep, by
So
subscribers.
I have at my access, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 phone numbers. If I sign up all 3 phone numbers, then I've taken
You've taken 3 of my 10,000.
spots.
3 of your 10,000.
Yes.
Paul, I'd be surprised if, we have 11,000 residents, I'd be surprised if we get 10,000 people to sign up.
So I have an initial goal, it's a lofty goal, if this were to get unlocked, I think, by, springtime, I would like to see probably 3,000 initially signed up for it, okay? Is my initial goal. I look at, people that come out, they voted in referendum. Initial goal for the first 6 months is to have 3,000 people, signed up for this. But I will say that I'm going to, if this gets unlocked, I'm gonna need everybody's help in spreading the message. Because again, the system is only as good as our subscription base.
But I had mentioned that if you give it to the schools to send out, both schools use the school system, I forgot what it's called now, but they will literally send this out to 1,000, it'll go out to 1,000, at least 1,000 parents, but if there's 2 parents, at least more parents, and then the grandparents' number, so you will probably exceed your number just by sending it to the schools, the sign up.
Be great. It'd be a great, but then, once I get 3, my number's 5, so.
Yeah,
And-
well, I
So
think
I-
that-
The only thing we gotta pay attention to this is you have, I read in the back, you have 60 days. Once you implement this, you have 60 days for free support. So the training and then whatnot, you gotta get done in the first 60 days, or after that, they bill you per hour.
So I have unlocked Everbridge before in the
Okay.
prior community. I can tell you that they are a class operation. They will throw a ton of people at us. It is cloud-based, web-based software, very simple to navigate, very simple to write a message, and very easy to use. They made this very, very user-friendly in the way you're able to do messaging and pushing it out to the masses, including when you're looking to geofence, you open up your dashboard of the town of Winchester, you can literally draw a square of where you want to geofence, zoom in and say, oh, I want to make it a little bit bigger, oh, maybe I want to make it a little, oh, I do want to include this road. It is very, very simple to use.
And my next question is, I hope we never use this, but unlimited use?
It is unlimited
Okay.
use, yes, and I hope you're right, we never used that, yes.
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve this policy and purchase the Everbridge alert system for $5,400 per year.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? Moving on to item G, economic development update.
I can take a little pause for a second.
Town planner,
Come on up, Mr. Hanson.
Lance Hanson.
Good evening, everyone. So Paul asked me to come in, just if you had any questions, answer. I am losing my voice, but I'll do my best. Yeah, so we had a report to EDC and a report to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And there's a little bit of overlap, but you can see basically, and this is really from the past, I would say, year of interactions I've had with different companies and residents in town.
There's
nothing that we have from Lance that we're following along.
You should.
Yep.
Do not.
Should have been a packet with, building
Unless it's not
officials
in-
report.
Unless it's not in the order of.
I did note that I think Jim, the Director of Public Works was, at least in my
Yeah, it's-
packet,
it's
was
behind
put
that
it before.
Yeah, it's behind.
Yeah, it's behind Public Works.
It's in here.
Okay.
It's just not in order?
Yeah, it's in the,
Okay. Jim, I have to move your stuff out of it.
sorry. Okay, we're good now.
So I'm just saying, hopefully you had a chance to review. If there's anything you had to, specific questions, obviously you could ask me now or email me, that's fine. I am gonna continue to work with EDC and planning and zoning for the priorities, things we wanna continue to work, but, yeah.
Questions from the board?
Well, yeah, I'll go. So, one of the reasons that at the last meeting I asked for you to come is the same reason about a year and a couple months ago. We asked you about what were the plans for development along the old Rowley Street, Route 8, and north to the industrial parks. You know, Main Street, we can see, but those other parts we can't see. So, knowing that revenue, economic revenue is the most important thing that we can do at this point, because as you can see, we've been approving things that cost money tonight. And so where are we with, I'll just start with Route 8, and I only want to know about things that are going to generate revenue. So where are we, because like I said, we did that with the last board, that same question about where things are, where are potential, anything you've done in terms of repurposing, you know, current buildings that are underutilized, talking to any buildings, people, businesses that may want to expand, could you, you know, let us know from, you start on the Torrington end and then go all the way up to the Colbrook end?
Yeah, and that ended up being the focus was the Route 800 corridor. You remember we had a spreadsheet of what the limitations are, the floodplains and the steep slopes, and what could be for potential build out. Example is 185 Torrington Road, USA Hauling. They're one of the businesses that do want to expand, build a new, basically maintenance building. The biggest one at the moment that has legs is 137 Torrington Road, used to be Kenny Fracasso's property, now Yield Industries is the owner. And the way they could move forward right now, they could probably build like 5 buildings on the property. But we're hoping with maybe the Sue Grossman expansion and then having sewer line expansion, as we're already working on for getting a DPW building, that would maybe unlock the potential for more buildings. They don't have the setbacks from Torrington area Health District. Been now working on the Route 8 North Corridor, making some connections. I have talked with Hubble. I mean, the John Grappo Drive, we all know, is underutilized. So Gary from EDC has done a study of what's the current tenants already in the buildings, and basically just reach out if there's any businesses that want to expand into the additional spaces or try to target new people to come to town. I know groups like Personal Digital Spaces are looking for new space, so we're talking with them. Yeah.
Have you quantified anywhere what with the businesses that have come into town in the last 2 years and how much they've generated in, you know, additional personal property taxes?
I have not, but I could work with Becky on that. I would say Main Street specifically is almost full now. We had the 2 more ribbon cuttings over the weekend. There's really not, the heart of the Merchants
Right,
Row
but
is really
each of
full
them,
now.
each of them produces personal property tax based on the machinery they have or computers they have or that. So I think when we start looking at, you know, the planning, I know that usually we have, you know, a planner will have, well, like if you look in Torrington over at the old Brunswick factory, they had a public forum on it. They talked to the person that owns it, which happens to be somebody here, I believe in town here, that owns multiple buildings. And they've started to talk about, you know, what could they do down at that particular old, you know, industrial, you know, factory site. You know, what would it take to develop that, the Brownsfield, what would it take for this, what would it take for that? And I know Paul earlier told us he had asked you about, you know, put together the fact sheet for the Wallens Hill property and stuff like that. So something like that, do we have any of that for any of our areas that you have?
Absolutely, those conversations are happening.
No, not
So-
conversations, but like, is there a written plan anywhere? Like our goals, our strategic plan, or?
Yeah, so I did attend the Torrington, I actually just met William, their new EDC director, because we have regional meetings with our counterparts in Torrington. So the answer is, planning and zoning wants to get into planning as part of our first meetings of the month. So, again, we have 7 mills that could be worked on for different purposes. We've talked about all of them over the past year. Has there been any, like, charrettes or strategic planning? No.
No, but I mean, like from you, like, as past planners here have had certain things, reports and whatnot that they've done around certain areas in town.
For a specific
For
building
planning.
or?
Yeah, I mean, like, what do we think goes here? What do we think goes there?
Mm-hmm.
What kinds of things are we looking for here? What kinds of things would fit well on Winston?
Some of that's in the notes on these 2 plans, especially the old, we'll call it the Tractor Supply land behind Stop and Shop Plaza. You know, we're always looking for a new tenant to consider building that space. I'd say we've done a lot of reach out there. The other one is a hot button is a 108 East Lake Street, which is the old nursing home up at the lake. Multiple things have come in over the past year that haven't gone anywhere, but a lot of things we've had reapplication consultations about. You know, I would love to consider a whole study and focus on the other side of the river for 45, 35 Willow, 9 Willow, 10 Bridge Street, 6 Willow Street, coming back to the Burwell property as well. As you know, it's a hot topic issue for town. It's really like one of the biggest potential, I'm not gonna use potential, I hate that word for town. We all know that there's potential here. We need to start making things happen. But that is a focus area. Obviously, the Winstead Health Center is another one. Has legs right now, and I think Hartford folks are coming again this month. Anytime we can get dignitaries, whenever to come to town, that's good for us.
Who's coming again this month?
I think John Larson's office is gonna be coming again.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's the Veterans Project. And
Yeah.
it's out of the group out of Waterbury. And it just seems that that's moving,
Mhm.
it's going. I'm talking about things that are in there, that aren't moving, that need to move, what are the plans for those? What have you put together for that, for, you know, either,
What would you like us to work on?
I'm sorry?
What would you like us to work on, other than that's on the lists? Yeah, go ahead.
So, I think we're looking at a lot of stuff. We're looking at a lot of uses and a lot of properties. I think what I'd like to see personally is pick a couple. Let's pick on 108 East Lake Street and focus on that. You know, instead of looking at, we got 200 properties in town, it'd be great to do something with, let's pick a couple of them and let's see what we can do with them. I know Vinny and Vinny that are representing 108 Lake Street. Let's push them. Vinny's very easy to give a little kick. I got an email from him today, because we met with him obviously down there for the ribbon cutting. I had a problem with that building. I said, and again, Vinny knows I don't play games. I want that awnings pressure washed. I want the front of that storefront painted. I want those sidewalks cleaned. Now, I spoke with the owner and the property manager there early spring,
Right.
when I was looking at doing something with that. And all I heard is, oh, Bill, I promise, we're gonna do it. We actually have the materials. We're just waiting for the weather to get a little warmer. I had a conversation with Vinny Saturday and said, well, guess what, buddy? The leaves are changing, so it got warmer. I got an email from Vinny today. He's very easy to communicate, but
Vinny's great.
Let's give Vinny a little kick and say, find somebody. Let's do something with 108 and maybe pick 2 or 3 or 4 other properties and focus on them. And work on other stuff in the background, but it's great to look. I see a lot of stuff we're looking at, but I think we need to focus on a few.
I completely agree with you. 272 Main Street as the old IGA building. That's another one that's become focus for us to try to get a tenant in there. That was my goal before the end of the year. I don't know
Because
if
we
it can
need to, again, clean that. Main Street's really popping, I think. It's really looking good. It was exciting to walk down it this weekend. I came to that ribbon cutting a couple hours early and talked to a few of the shop owners down there. Parts of it are looking really good, but we got IGA. We got a couple buildings that we really need to talk to these property owners and do something with them. And even if we don't find a business for, who owns the facade there? That is
It's
part
still
of.
community wealth.
It is community well, so we need to have a conversation with them and say, yes, we're excited to do something in this part that's not rented right now, but in the meantime, let's clean the windows, paint it, clean the sidewalks, and make it look, it's a lot easier for them to find somebody put in that space when they come in and they go, wow, this is a nice little spot here, let's move something in then. Wow, the paint's peeling and the sidewalks are cracked and the windows are dirty, and so I think stuff like that, you agree, we need to pick a few, that's a good one too. So we could add that to 108.
I'm gonna jump in real quick. Thanks, Lance, for coming tonight. Your voice definitely needs to get better. I'll note that there was a few weeks ago, Lance and I sat down and we had a very productive heart-to-heart meeting. You all hired me for economic development, growing the grand list. Prior to me coming in, Lance tended to take on a lot of different roles within town hall. He was on this board, he was on that.
We've had a lot of needs for town for a long time.
He was every which way. Lance and I walked out of that meeting that, there are many different, would I need him? There's different quadrants. The only box that I need him.
Only the right hand.
I need him focused on economic development. I'm not saying he's gonna be gone from Conservation Commission forever. I'm not saying he's gonna be gone from Soldiers, but right now, the biggest crucial item that this town needs is economic development. And I did get pushback from a few of those board chairs and/or board members. They sent emails. And, I responded nicely, as I do, but ultimately, all of those go away if we don't have the economic. We can't support Soldiers Monument every single year with, a line item in a budget if we don't have that economic growth. We can't support, all of this stuff if we don't have that economic growth. This was a meeting that Mr. Hanson and I had several weeks ago, that from my office, his sole direction is gonna be economic growth.
Are you happy with September?
You get it.
All right.
I don't like to do, employee evaluations publicly.
Let me, just to let you know the kind of, I don't want to say pressure that the board puts necessarily on him, but maybe it's, to some degree, that's the best word to use. It's no secret, as we went through budget time, this position was on and off again a couple of times, right? And he said, I need town planner, because that's how we're gonna grow the grand list. I need the town planner to work with me directly to proactively develop this town from a standpoint of bringing in new business, new opportunities, right? So we, as a board, voted that position back in because he said he needed it. So the pressure he gets, and I share this with you only so that you know, the expectation of this board, of this position, is, as you said, that quadrant is focused in that area. We need to know that there's opportunities that you're working on that you're gonna bring over the finish line, right? And I think that getting this to us tonight and having you here tonight is a great start. And this will be clearly up to Paul, but, we've asked the Director of Public Works to come in regularly now to update us on roads, and I think it would behoove us all if you came in regularly and said, here's the project I'm working on, here's what I think we're gonna get over the finish line, and maybe in some way, we as a board can even help with that.
That'd be great.
Right, whether it's talking to potential developers or what have you. And again, I don't want to step over the line in terms of what we're allowed and not allowed to do, but we are going to be faced with a terribly difficult budget again, and it seems like it'll be like tomorrow. It's around the corner again. We just finished the last one. But make no mistake, what the expectation of this board is that the town planner is actively, every day, looking for opportunities, marketing this town. And, we talked about having a one-page document for Wallens Hill. Heck, I would think if I was in your shoes, I'd want to have a catalog of documents for every opportunity in town, every building in town that you're aware of where you can bring a tenant and an owner together, or you can bring a developer together who's going to bring something here to benefit us and benefit this town. So he is under constant pressure from us for development, and I just want you to know that's the expectation of what we invested in a town planner. We need to see a return on the investment.
Absolutely understood. And while that's not the only thing of planning, I get it.
It is right now.
It is right now, and I get it.
Paul, to go back to your point, is a great point. But I actually looked through some of this stuff, and I think Lance has done a pretty good job. If you go through all these documents, there's a pretty good start of a catalog here of
Yeah, but
properties
when I
that
say a
focus on.
catalog, if someone calls and said, I want to look at 100 or talk, whatever the address is, he's got a document, he's got a brochure with all the fine points of this
Yeah, yeah,
thing
yeah.
that he can email out on demand, right?
And I agree with you, and I think that's great, and I know you a little bit, so I think you probably got that list somewhere. But I also think we need to pick some of these hot properties. I mean, 108, if you drive up there, it's failing though, right? Every year it sits, it's failing. We need to pick some of these hot properties and spotlight them, I guess. Pick that catalog, and we need the front page. We'll break the front cover up in 4. Let's put 4 spotlight properties on that front cover of that catalog. So that when developers and whatnot do come in, what do you got? Well, I got these 4 right here. I got all these too, but
And what are we doing in terms of a section of the new website where developers can, if they happen to be perusing, and that's probably not going to happen often, but opportunities in town.
Let's temper new website with price that almost made me fall out of my chair, but I'm not done trying to figure.
Yeah.
So economic development, that commission's is good with the work that they're doing, and they have been trying to update that. So there's that other part of it, but it can't be left to them because they're the volunteer group.
Right.
They're the volunteer group, and I think Paul articulated better than I could in terms of the expectations here. I just followed up from where I was, but that's kind of where we're going.
Anything else from the board?
We talked about the old IGA, and we glossed over it, but there was a brainstorming meeting.
That long ago,
Yeah,
2-3 weeks ago now.
Days feel, I don't know, yeah.
Which led me to
it
go
was
talk
recent.
to Spice 320,
but
who's
we-
interested in coming to town now.
Yeah, we brought in a.
Right, so when you talk about, so when you talk about Spice 320 coming, they have certain needs, right? And I know you were talking about certain buildings, but certain buildings don't have a place for a kitchen, don't have a place for exhaust, may only have places for display, right? So when you're matching them up, they have to be matched up into buildings that would allow for that. Because Home and Cake is a good example. They wanted to put a kitchen in, they wanted to put, make the cakes there and not somewhere else, and, and then they found out it was too expensive to put that exhaust system in. Then there was another place a few years ago that wanted to put, something in, but there was no place to exhaust it, no place to put in the things that are needed. So when whoever said about the catalog and what's there is, well, here's this building, and these are the things that could probably happen in it. Your business probably can't happen in here. Right? So your business maybe can happen over here, or maybe it happens over here. Because there's already things that are known to be able to happen in certain places, right? Or if you're gonna make it happen, it's just a huge, magnificent expense for it. So I think places like the community health center too, you look at what the rental costs are. Maybe we should know upfront what rental costs are for certain buildings, so when somebody comes through, this is what it is, so that one sheet approach, with the square footage, with everything out there, should be there. And there should be like a plan of like, what do we have in town now and what are we missing? And so what do we want that would complete a person's experience on Main Street? But more importantly, your money's not on Main Street, the money's on the south side. If you look at the revenue report I did a long time ago, there's quite a bit of money off of Main Street, in the buildings in the south end of town, and then if you look at the industrial parks up there and the expansion that's possible, you know, or the, you know, expansions within the business or expansions on the sites, if there were ways to unlock some new sites, or the site that we have that we sold that was supposed to be developed that never got developed, you know, those kind of things. I think that's what we would all want.
And if I could add to one more thing, I'm looking at another property. Again, go back to Wallens Hill, Mountainside Drive. The villages at Wallens Hill. Personally, I don't wanna see anything to do with villages and whatnot. I don't want, the young families are great, workers are great. We need some brandless growth. I don't need little villages that eventually, I'm just gonna be blunt, in 10, 15 years, a nonprofit's gonna buy it, they're gonna turn them all into affordable housing, and we're gonna make nothing off it. We want homes in certain areas, developable properties.
That's just the title, by the way, and that's
I
actually the
know,
way
I know
they
that
use
wasn't
it.
yours, but I'm just
Right.
saying.
Yeah, let's not, let's try and keep it, when we talk about different developable properties, you know, we have to maintain a clear slate of, you know, inviting businesses in, so I think.
Right.
Just stay.
And just wanted to follow up quick, we do have specs for buildings that what current square footage is or what's on the list with LoopNet. And then EDC during the foliage festival did do a little survey, which we had talked about, what people would like to see come to town. With a discussion whether or not they felt strongly about having chains. Yeah, and basically those are nothing we've been working with.
Right, but a survey about chains is a demographic issue, right? So why would we talk about an Aldi's or a Trader Joe's when we know it's a demographic hurdle that we're probably not gonna win?
I don't know if I agree with that though, because my wife, we live in Canton. She would come out here for Trader Joe's.
That, I gotta interject, because Lance and I argue about this, and we'll argue in front of all of you tonight, so you can see our arguments. Aldi Trader Joe's, is a massive build-out that, you know, you look at the towns that they've moved into, you look at just the price to keep a cooler on. You need so many turns of people to come through that door on a yearly basis that Lance and I argue about this point consistently with Trader Joe's and you know, unfortunately, you know, you see Stop and Shops are closing 5 stores in Connecticut, right? There's a reason they're closing their stores. They're just not profitable when you look at the cost of lighting them, keeping the refrigeration on, paying, you know, the workers and stuff like that. We have to be realistic in what, yeah, shoot for the moon, but we also need to be realistic with it. Lance and I have argued about Aldi's and Trader Joe's since I walked in the door. And we have to, so we'll continue to argue.
In the public
about
market, we'll argue about too.
Public market, you got me on, because those are
Alright.
individual, you know, items, so that their rents are lower of smaller spaces. You and I agreed on that one.
You're a trooper tonight, Lance, with your voice.
Thank you, sorry.
We
I
need-
talked to like 500 people yesterday at the People's State Forest 100th anniversary. It was a great day, but yeah, I'm paying
Basically,
for it now.
summing up what everyone up here said tonight, we need to get some wins to show the residents, especially as we approach budget time. So keep trucking along and
We definitely are.
And I think we should do this on a regular basis.
We can do that. And that the mayor's point, it's not just a win to show that to the residents, but it's also to get more money invested in the community. Once you unlock a few of those catalyst projects, the money just starts to pour in. Once they see that 1 or 2 or 3 investors have invested millions of dollars, it's why I spend, you know, some time dealing with all of our vacant buildings. If we can get the developer to come in and put 50, 60, 70 million dollars into one of those vacant buildings, that's going to unlock a lot of the smaller items as well. So where you'll see a lot of my attention, and 10 Bridge Street is an interesting one, where reached out to a developer I worked with in my last town. Sadly to say, his response to me was, it's too small of a project for us, Paul. It's probably a $40 to $50 million project. Okay, passed it on to a smaller firm, and the smaller firm noted that when they called the broker, that it was under contract with a potential new buyer. That was supposed to close on October 1st. I have not heard that it did close on October 1st. So rest assured, I will be following up with all parties to see potentially if I can get this smaller developer that has traction and that has done projects in the $40 to $50 million range back to get eyes on it, so. But, yeah, we need the big money, which will also bring in some of the smaller money as well.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Lance.
See you again soon.
Thank you, Lance.
Drink some hot tea tonight.
Moving on to item H, Public Works Road Update, Director Rollins.
Mr. Rollins, can I start with the good news first? We'll start them on a high, and then we'll go down into the granular stuff of the.
No good news is allowed. Yeah, no,
We'll
go
get.
ahead.
Mr. Rollins and I have been meeting over the last 2-3 weeks. An item that was discussed when you all approved the road bond several years ago was that there was going to be a position that would be created, a quote-unquote clerk of the works that manages these road projects. Jim and I believe, are in our final revision of the actual job posting. We hope to have that job posted by the end of this week. That person's sole responsibility will be to get shovels in the ground, to manage the project. Jim will probably say it 15 times tonight, if not more, the bandwidth. When somebody says the bandwidth, I just throw more things at it, and then we lower the bandwidth, and everybody takes a little bit of bandwidth. So we are gonna fund it through the actual bond money, but we hope to have that job description or job posting done. I think we said Thursday we wanted it up live. We met again today, fine-tuned a couple of points, but we are gonna bring on a clerk of the works, which was promised to the residents and probably the prior Board of Selectmen, because that was talked about in the actual bond. We're gonna have a particular individual managing these projects, and any project that hasn't started, get started, because now we have a dedicated individual just looking at the projects and getting them going. So that was the good news. Now we're gonna get into the real detail of it.
All right. So, it seems like there's been a little bit of a shift on the board. You know, I was coming in doing bond updates, and then at some point there was gonna be like a capital improvement update. Now I'm here, like, it sounds like monthly, so I just combined them all into one. So I changed the format. It's the same basic format, but I changed the topics. Starting with bond projects, and then going to regular capital improvement, non-bond projects, and then capital improvement for vehicles and equipment, because that's always something that is usually talked about right after budget season. And then right at the very end, I decided to start handling just annual budget, maintenance, kind of annual maintenance, just out of your random budget. Just things that we just do, because a lot of that seems to get lost. And I don't wanna go through each and every one of these, cause it's already, almost 10 o'clock. But I tried to get this to you, last week, so you had a chance to go through it. Anything that was highlighted in yellow, I was hoping to get further information. I really didn't get any, percentage statistics for Elm Street or Hubbard Street, but I did get a little bit of an update on the Highland Lake Stream project. For those of you in the public that don't know this, the Highland Lake Stream issue, when water comes out of the spillways or we open the gates to lower the lake at Highland Lake, water runs down Highland Lake Stream, and wear and tear over the years has eroded the riverbanks such that water finds its way out onto Boyd Street. That's Route 263. And that really impairs Public Works' ability to maintain that lake level. So we did some investigation. We found out, pretty much where the water was coming from, how it was making its way out to the road. And it's kind of an interesting situation in that the stream isn't town property, the property it's going through isn't town property, and the road isn't a town road. So I have really limited abilities to make any kind of improvements there. So I did reach out to DOT because it's a state road, and they're the ones that really get upset when it gets covered in water and ice. So they kind of took the ball and ran with it. And the most recent update as of Friday or Monday was that the work that they had thought would solve the problem because of the grades won't fit within the state road right-of-way, so they need to work with the property owner. So they're reaching out to them to try to come up with some way of capturing that water before it hits the road and discharging it back into the river. So, again, it's not much of an answer, but that's the update to where it is. My reply to them was, okay, that makes me think nothing's gonna be resolved before fall, so this is my plan. And my plan to resolve the problem is November 1st, when the lake is scheduled to drop 3 feet, we're gonna open the gates and just let it roar. And get that lake as low as it can, as quickly as it can, before the roads get cold enough to freeze. If we do get an early cold spell and the lake isn't down all the way, we'll have to stop, wait for the weather, and then let it really fly. So I haven't heard back whether they are in agreement with that yet, but that's really the only update that has come up since I sent this out last week. So if anybody has any questions about something they actually see that, they wanna have better information, go ahead and
I just
ask.
wanna talk about the stream.
Yep.
And the gates and the water. This year, it's the 3 foot.
Yep.
Next year, it's a deep draw.
Yep.
People are gonna have contractors and everybody, and we've talked about this. If this isn't solved for October 1st of next year, right? Because it starts going down October 1st or October 15th.
Whatever.
One of those, if it's not solved for that and the lake can't get down, for people to do their walls after they've hired everybody, put deposits down and everything, it's not gonna be fun. And I've talked to Paul about this, and I believe Paul has also talked to Paul about it. And, because there's gonna be a thing that's gonna go out to encourage people to get their permits early, so that inland wetlands doesn't have to we have the language, the town will put it out, and we'll put it out, meaning the Lake Association will put it out to members. But if it can't get down then, if this isn't solved, whether it's solved by the state or solved by you, it will not be fun, especially because we've known about it for so long. Right? So we've known about it, but.
It hasn't been fun, and I guess it won't be. I mean,
So the state.
Great.
The state-
What can we do? It's like, it's not our property. I don't have the rights or the responsibility to do it, and you're charging me to do it. So I'm reaching out to the people who, seem to have at least the,
Right, but don't we,
some
when we
task.
do other things, like we're doing the wall down, the south end of the lake, and some of it's on somebody's property, and we've done temporary easements before. So could that property owner have a temporary easement for work to be done?
Oh, of course. But it gets into there's kind of a three-legged stool. There's, do I have the right to do it? Do I have the responsibility to it? Do I have the resources to do it?
So then
In this
maybe-
case, I feel I have none of the three.
Right, so maybe then the state needs to have a meeting here.
Well, then that could be the case.
Maybe we need to have the state come in.
I mean, from a responsibility standpoint, Jim, we do have the responsibility to maintain the lake level, right? That is our responsibility. And this is creating a problem in regards to that part. Listen, I get that it's the state road and it's their jurisdiction, it sounds like, in this deal.
So then I'll just open the gates, that's fine with me.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, it's their problem to solve,
Keep the lake
right?
happy. Okay, no. That
So
sounds like a directive to me.
this problem didn't always exist, right? Something changed along the way? Because we used to be able to open the gate 100%, no problems, right?
It's slowly been deteriorating to the point it's at. When I first started here 10 years ago, the water company guys brought me up and showed me the problem. They said, yeah, something's not quite right. We can only get the gate open X number of inches before we start seeing it run over the road, which wasn't the case. I think that was, they could open it 16 inches, 18 inches, something like that. Now if we open it more than 8 inches, so.
What does 8 inches give you for dropping in terms of inches? What is it, an inch a day you can drop with an 8-inch open?
I don't have an answer for that.
I think someone knew, or like at 18 inches, you drop it pretty quick, right?
1 to 2 inches. It used to be 1 to 2 inches
One-
a day it would drop.
right.
And depending on the water coming in. But since you haven't been able to open up the gate, like last year, it didn't even, we were supposed to have the 4 foot, 48 inches. We didn't even get down. We
Well,
didn't, we
well, the
barely
fall,
got.
it rained like crazy.
Right, and
And then
because of
we
that.
froze in places we never froze last year either.
But, so we never even got there with 3
Right.
last year. Because
We
of
got
the-
down, but then it came back because of all the rain, and then suddenly there was places that, again, this is, and what's significant about this is people know where the water's going to be in the fall, and docks and walls and what have you that are never near ice, they expect not to have to worry about. Well, last year, we had docks and lifts and things that were in ice all over the lake because it came back up and we couldn't drain it fast enough. So we do have responsibility to maintain it. I get your point, though. It's a state road. So when you drain and it washes over the road, and who complains? The state calls you and says, hey, you're flooding us out? Okay, well, hey, fix it. It's your problem, not ours, right?
Oh, fair enough. I'll pass
To
that
them.
along.
Well, I think,
Good luck with that.
yeah, but I think that we need to call them in. I think the town manager needs to call the state in and explain to them besides Jim, because it's, it's easy, not to be disrespectful, but when you work with somebody all the time, it's easy to just shove it off to the side a little bit. But when it starts going up the food chain, right, it's going up the food chain.
And Jim, I know your hands are tied. This is not a reflection on you.
Oh, I understand.
You're
I
dealing
just-
with a problem here that you
Yep.
can't fix, but we got to get it fixed, and we have to rattle enough cages to get it fixed.
When you get a job with the state, the first class you take is non-committal class. You cannot, I mean, we've had, in Norfolk, we've had hundreds of cases that we had to deal with the state because everything around us is a state road. And they do nothing. They don't care. They're not gonna do nothing. They're not gonna do nothing.
They'll care if we keep flooding them out and it
So does
freezes.
They don't
somebody,
care. They'll put more salt on it. You're paying for it.
does somebody govern that? I mean, like, you can't just tear those gates out, right, and replace them? I mean, Chris, we did a box culvert at work. We had to have the Army Corps of Engineers in, they had to design it, approve the design, told us what we could do, what we couldn't do, and it's literally 8 feet across.
Well, I'd be happy right now that they don't control our lake. They don't control the
But I
level
mean, as
of
far as replacing like the gates and the
That's not
and
the
water.
problem.
That's not the problem. The problem is downstream.
Yeah, the
Some
problem
rocks
is,
moved.
the problem is the stream bank right down where Boyd Street crosses the Highland Lake.
I think some big storm event moved some rocks
Is the
I
property,
think it's
and
just,
eroded, and
yeah, I
it
think-
just, and the stream just wandered.
is the property owner open to the town going on their property to fix it?
I'm sure they would be if we wanted to come up with the gobs of
You
money
mentioned
that it
some
takes to
kind
do
of
it.
Some kind of a wall or something to deflect it, maybe?
Yep, that option has been considered, but again,
would be the cheapest
at whose
option, I would
price,
think.
you know? You guys want it fixed, so they're gonna say, well, you fix it then, you know? So, and here we are, trying to not spend, taxpayer
So I think what
dollars,
we have to do- we have to
especially on private
engage-
property.
The DOT, but we also have to engage some of our state officials as well, who ultimately the DOT reports to. So, with your help, you and I talk
Yep.
every day, but I think I have to start rattling a lot more chains, and I think I also need to get our state and Senate representatives and others, where ultimately the DOT is, rolling up to them and report to them. So,
Yeah.
this is, an issue that needs to get addressed, something that your hands are tied, we talk about it a lot. But I think I gotta do a better job from my office. I gotta rattle some more chains.
Well, again, keep in mind that we kind of thought we had a pretty simple solution until the state right-of-way wasn't big enough to accommodate that solution. Now, can they do something like get an easement and go on private property? It might be that simple for them, but I don't think they've gotten to that point yet. But they might get there quicker with some help.
Yeah.
For me, it's,
And
Troy
I
says
think it's important also, Selectwoman Perez and I were talking, the gate isn't all that great either. So our EMD director is out there looking, we could get a catastrophic flooding event, something of the nature, but we need to improve that gate. So we're out there trying to try and find the money to replace that gate to allow a gate to function properly.
A selectman said it early, if you're gonna do it and you're gonna fix it, let's do it right. Right, so you may need to get I agree.
I mean,
Bring
the
the state in.
gate's a big issue. The gate
that's
takes
huge.
a huge amount of money. Downstream would be a lot easier to,
Yep.
making the stream bed move, would be a whole lot easier to fix, but,
If you go for the gate
Jimmy, how
first,
much
Is
water
the
goes
gate
over there?
failing? Is it
Like-
ready to fail, the gate?
no, I don't think it's ready to fail.
No, it's not, I mean,
I mean, should there be a,
How much water goes through there, Jimmy, now that it's been real dry? I mean, is the brook always flowing heavy, or?
So we can't close the gate 100%. We don't know if it's the gate itself or if there's just debris that's stuck in there, you know? But it gets within a couple inches of the bottom, which we're always supposed to have some water flow. That's a water quality or, wetlands thing. So we probably would never close the thing anyway.
But it would be workable, though, there's.
But
Well,
you
it is
could, but you
workable.
could,
We
you
move
could
it- we move it
manage
virtually
dry
every
spells
day.
like we're in right now, too. I mean, we haven't, so we drained it to get ready for the storm that never came, and then it never rained again.
It
And we've been
never
down, we've been down 4 to 6 inches depending on the week since then, which stresses a lot of people out who have shallow lifts and what have you. And, I kept arguing with people, it's like, oh, it's going down more. I'm like, no, the gate's closed. Now, the gate's never really closed all the way.
It can't close all the way, and as far as I know, it never has, but.
Because it's been continuing to go down and we don't get rain. We have to be able to close it. I mean,
Again, we have to,
future either.
we have to keep some water flowing through it for the downstream. The stream has to have constant water flow. So if you're closing it within an inch, it's 3 feet wide, an inch with, 20 feet ahead, like, that's some water.
and again, there's probably guidelines on that, right? And that's where, if you even start mentioning gate, I truly believe the Army Corps is gonna get engineered, is gonna get involved, right? That's my experience with the box culverts, but as soon as they get involved, Paul, regardless of the issue downstream, if they wanna improve downstream, they say, we gotta replace this gate, and that's gonna involve this, it'll happen. The Army Corps engineers are gonna make that happen.
it's a whole dam. The spillways are the dam.
right.
That's what rose First Bay up all those years ago, to be more storage for the factories.
Yeah, but just, when you get a dry spell, if you can manage that flow in particular, it's important. Hey, Jim, I have a question on Mountain Road, right? You got the under drains in there, which has been a horrible road with ice and water for a couple, 3 years. And we're getting towards the end of paving season here, and in the note is, how do we pay for it? Have we made any headway on it? Are we gonna be able to fix that road before the?
Well, I'll budget for it in the next budget and hope that we
So
get
we're gonna
funds
have to
for
leave it the way it is for another year?
Yep, at least for this winter until we get another budget.
Can you plow over that spot that they, cut?
Oh, yeah.
Can you ask the contractor on Hubbard Road to remove the barrels or they're not cones, they're like traffic markers or whatever, in the middle of the road? He's got people going in a maze over there. You start on one side, then you gotta go cross over.
On Hubbard or Elm?
Hubbard.
Because I see it more on Elm Street, but
I don't go Elm Street. Hubbard's my quick cut to go to work, and the people were complaining about it down there, so. He's got like the whole road closed up, and if he could grade it a little flat, that would be nice too.
yep.
Other questions? Jim, anything else?
So is the format, because I want to try to, if we're going to be doing this monthly, I just want to try to, if there's something about the format that works or doesn't work, I like to change it, a little bit. But is it pretty easy to understand? The newest, most up-to-date stuff is in red, and, stuff I kind of turn it into black when I get an update. I take away the stuff that's kind of unimportant. Try to put enough information that you don't have to remember all the details. It kind of reminds you as we go.
I love that it's broken out bond, non-bond, because
Okay.
that's helpful, right? So everything above this capital improvements line is all bond project stuff that's
Yep.
being worked on.
Yep.
No, I think that's great.
And if you have another, category that you think, should be in there, be happy to add it.
Well, I think potentially there may be a new category next year, depending on if we're gonna fund, more road stuff with, I'll use the term pay-as-you-go, which means it's been injected in the budget, but again, to be determined as we put the budget together, but that would be, where I would come at it from. This is not on our website yet, but if the board is happy with the way it looks, we'll get it up on our website tomorrow. We did that back. The last time we did an update on the roads report, we'll get this one up. So it's not only you all seeing it, but I know, the residents are always, what's going on, what's going on. When we posted the last update, I think it was well received. If you are all okay with it, we'll get the latest edition up on our website as well. And we'll keep them in order. We're not gonna get rid of the last one.
Right.
We'll just add another one, and we'll just, inform our residents of, what's going on.
Yeah, I like this format as well.
Okay.
Is it possible to put, this is scary to say, end dates, projected end dates for projects? In other words, this road will be completed by such and such, and I only ask that because if we're gonna put it out on the website, and if I was just looking at it, I would be like, okay, so when is it gonna be done? That's the question.
So I've been doing that for the ones that are like currently active. You'll see, substantial, for Elm Street, substantial completion is expected in November, and same with Hubbard. Yeah, I can try to be a little more mindful of that. Yeah,
Yeah, that'll help. I think you're right with the residents. Like KSAP Bridge, you got sidewalks and paint.
Yep.
Just left to do, but.
Yeah, I do try to put in, this fall or next spring, or,
Yeah, yeah.
the one above it is before winter.
Yeah, even that's perfect timing. We
you
don't have
know-
to say, all right, April 12th, it'll be done,
Yeah.
just like, be done in the spring.
Yeah, a lot of times,
Although the more vague you are, the more it doesn't resonate, I think, either. I mean, if you could say, planned completion, right? Planned completion, April 25. Now, plans, as we all know, can change, but at least there's a target date for each project that the residents can look at and go, great, that's gonna be done by, because Jim, we just hear it constantly. That's the number one thing that you hear from everybody is, how we doing on roads? And I think if we had some planned end dates, people would start to get excited about it, actually. I know I would.
Give them a little hope.
yeah, I'll work on that. It's, yeah, that's a tough one, but we'll,
I was just stating to myself, those could be interesting phone calls. Mr. Marine, I don't disagree with you. The problem with paving is if April 25th is a rain day, that just got moved to the 26th.
I don't want to do a date. I said
He didn't say
April
date, he said April
2025.
of
okay.
2025, yeah.
Okay, I thought you meant
Planned
April 25th.
completion,
Okay.
May
Yeah.
2026.
Right.
It's the year, no days. Yeah, no, I get that.
Okay, I'm good.
The day that we can pinpoint to the day that we're gonna,
That's not till next year, Paul.
that'd be something.
I was pretty happy that it had, potential start dates, getting to potential completion dates.
They just want to know when it's gonna
It's
end.
gonna be enough.
Jim, just because I know our mornings are difficult, before I post this, you'll do an update, send it, and then I'll get it
Yeah,
up on our website.
Yeah, I'll clean that up.
Just so we know who's doing what before we do it.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks for all the effort, Jim.
Moving on to item I.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, just for scheduling purposes, so Jim has enough advance notice. So looking at the calendar, knowing that paving season's going to end somewhere after our first meeting in November, can Mr. Rollins come in on the second meeting in November? Would the board be okay with that? Because by then, that's November 18th. The mill's probably be close to
Closes
shutting.
after Thanksgiving unless the weather's good.
Yeah, well, yeah.
They should still be open
You
then.
think on the 18th?
I think so,
Yeah, they'll be.
All right, we'll keep that.
yeah. And we're looking at, we're cracking the whip pretty hard to get paving done on Hubbard, Elm, and Chapel. Those are the big ones for the year. So, yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
Whether it's the
okay,
first
we
or
can-
the second, I don't really care.
Elm is where I get the most phone calls right now.
Oh, I would imagine.
Yeah, and you get,
I
I ask
probably
you
do
for some
too.
of them, yeah, that's where I'm getting most phone calls.
Okay,
Thanks, Jim.
yep.
Item I, 24-47, refunds as recommended by the Collector of Revenues.
I make a motion, we pay the.
Would you like me to give it to you so you can read it?
You can read it.
Oh, okay. I move that the Board of Selectmen authorize the refunds recommended by the Collector of Revenue in the amount of $4,818.38.
Second.
Any discussion?
This is from, the, assessment appeals.
Most of it's all motor vehicle.
Yep. That was there, so.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? We have no citizens left for citizens' comments. Selectmen's comments and reports. Anyone? Anyone? Seeing no selectmen's comments or reports.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous.